that are joining us in the audience. Thank you for your time and your effort through this process as well. Superintendent, you know this is for our strategic plan. I'll turn to you as we get started at this time.
Okay, this is exactly, the one that I have here in color is exactly the same one that you had the last time.
Make sure I'm in there.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
For here.
Yeah.
And just wanted to share some information with the board in regards to the academic ones. I've done some research in regards to speaking to other superintendents and also called the Department of Education in regards to not having data. The only information that we have been able to acquire is the fact that third grade reading, and Lisette, this is brand new, we just found this out maybe 10 minutes ago. The 10th grade ELA and Algebra 1, we anticipate having those scores hopefully by June 8th. So kids will already be out of school, as a matter of fact, when we get that data. The rest of the data on all other exams will not be ready until September. So we are all 67 districts in the same predicament in not having any data to compare this year to next year. So I wanted to share that with you.
How do they feel if we didn't issue report cards until maybe next October for this year? We won't even do graduations till next Christmas.
A lot of school districts, though, don't start doing their strategic plan until the data is in.
Until what?
Until the data is in.
Well, that's what I was going to share with the board. No, actually, they start strategic plan well in advance because I've spoken to most of them who've already started at J. However, what may be the difference this year from other years is most of us will probably ask for an extension on the approval of the strategic plan. Rather than approving it on May 19th, we may want to extend that till September.
So is the issue saying we're gonna go from 50 to 52 in one of these things or something like that?
That's the case.
Can we not, though, put an increase of like 2% rather than making a number up or something?
The problem is we won't have that baseline.
Yeah.
Because
We
it'll
don't
be based on this. This is talking about creating next year's data points, which would be building off of this year's data points, and we don't know. Let's say something came in at 40%, we expect to come at 48%. We said a 2% increase. Now we're at 42 as opposed to 50. Just clarify for me again, I was trying to take notes. June 8th, what's coming in?
The only thing we would anticipate
Third
June
grade.
8th is third grade reading,
Okay.
which is already a problem because, as you know, the kids are gone. So we have to develop any other strategies we have in regards to promoting or retaining our third graders. ELA for 10th graders hopefully will be come out the June 8th, and Algebra 1. That's it.
Will you email that to me?
Sure. And there is this week, and curriculum instruction will be going, is it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Wednesday and Thursday?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday to FOIL, which is the Florida Organization of Instructional, what is it?
Leaders.
Instructional Leaders, thank you. Instructional Leaders, the L, I missed. Instructional Leaders, and hopefully we will get more information from the Department of Education then. But I'm gonna say very limited. I can tell already.
So part of what, you know, we've had a couple of times where we've sat down and we've heard and we've done presentations and overview from the superintendent and staff regarding the plan. Part of the purpose of this workshop is input from the board. Unless there's something additional in that arena, I suspect what we might ought to do at this point is kind of go around and just have some conversations. Board, what are some of the key things? We recognize that the data is going to be missing, which we know is an important part. But aside from that piece, there may be other ideas or thoughts or strategies or even changes or reductions that we're wanting to see in how this plan is laid out as well. This would be a good time to kind of talk through that, and then I know we can hit on some of the data points as we go through. Does that sound good? Guys, you're good with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, are you guys good with that? Yeah.
And in addition, I was just going to say, because it is a work in progress, there are a couple of changes that we have made. So after we hear your comments, then we would also like to share where we've made some additional changes. And they will be basically on the smart board. Again.
I'd like to, can we see your changes first, please, if you don't mind?
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Would you
fine.
like to do that? See
Yeah.
our changes first? Sure.
Yeah, if we don't
Okay.
do them twice.
Okay, so if we, since Go ahead, Yanela, if you can put them up. Can you make it any bigger, because I know the funds.
Well, we've got, is it the same, is it in this, or is
It
this
is,
not the same?
it is.
Is it wording in that, or are they additions to, or all the above?
There could be some wording that may be different, and in some cases, there could be some data that we have been able to acquire. So if you tell us which one it is, then we can look it up on the paper, okay?
Let's see if we can get just a touch bigger, see if you can type in the Zoom, you know.
That's okay, Mike, I'm just really looking
Yeah,
to
if he
see.
just says.
Okay.
Yeah, just tell us where it's at.
Because we all got the same thing in front of us.
Yeah, if you, right, if you tell us it's.
So, under target area 1A,
Okay,
one of the things that we wanted to become is, on our targets, be more specific in the different grades, but this is the proficiency that we have
So you're talking
for the
about-
13-14 school year is 55% for the district.
District reading.
Okay, so keep in mind, that after today, we can give you another copy of this after everybody's kind of on the same page. But you're gonna have, last year you had reading and writing separately. This year you're supposed to get one score for ELA. It's not really comparing apples to oranges, but that's where we're at. That's where we started from in 14.
Okay.
Don't have 15. Yes, sir.
What other changes? I mean, let's just go through.
Okay, go ahead.
We got that one, got that.
On the math, we have the same,
Which letter is this?
1B, I'm sorry.
1B?
yes,
B, go ahead, okay, go, I'm sorry.
same
what's that?
concept where we had the math overall for 13-14,
13, 14,
and that's the district
45%.
proficiency rate is 45%.
Algebra 1.
And then we have the algebra 1, 13-14 EOC at 45%,
45.
and geometry is 52%.
52. Okay, what's the next change you got?
Okay, going down.
1C?
You want to see? Again, the overall science there is 55.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that we heard from input from y'all is that we did want it to be more specific by the grades, so as we go forward, we're
All
gonna
right,
do
I just
that.
wanted to get the changes, so we
Okay.
look at the same thing.
1D?
And we didn't have a specific social studies in it before, and we've added that. So we went back and picked up the proficiency rate for 14. And Mike, on the civics?
The civics is baseline from last year, so we won't have a specific proficiency rates. So this year.
Last year, common scale scores, so
Oh,
you didn't.
I just want to go back. On the history, what grade is that?
U.S. history, for the most part, is an 11th grade
Okay,
course.
so
But
it's
keep
11th
in mind that kids that are accelerated may have it sooner.
Right, you might
kids
get some
that-
10, I understand. It's high school.
But now, I did put the grade specific for geometry and algebra
Okay.
for you, Joe.
And let me just make sure I'm looking at what you're showing me correctly. Is this 2013-14 data? So you're saying that is what's happened. We don't have 14-15 data, and you're just putting this in so that we have that historical perspective?
Yes, sir. That's
correct?
exactly
Okay.
right.
I just want to make
Right,
sure.
I just wanna-
Okay.
Okay.
You've got 1E.
1E, with input from our CTE staff, Ms. Pinkston wanted to add those two areas or two strategies, strengthen the articulation between the school, TICO, and Valencia. Again, that's an effort not to duplicate CTE programs, and then the K was going to be to kind of bring more validity to our programs within the nursing. We wanted to be able to join that one. We added in the targets, or the actual data from the 14 school year at 1,500 industry certifications obtained. And then we added the enrollment numbers at the campuses. Ms. Luciana wanted me to make sure that we realized the work that we had done in there and make sure we captured that's today, well, March's enrollment for each one of
Okay.
those campuses.
March 9th. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
And again, just to be clear, you're just showing us what's happened, not saying what you want happening.
Yes.
'Cause I'm
Yeah,
looking
yes,
at,
Tim,
like,
but some of them's
TICO
gonna be
enrollment.
current, like that TICO attendance is current, but
Right.
everything that says, that is 14 will say 14 on it for you.
Understand.
Right, right. That's has it. Then my point though is that you're showing TICO Poinciana enrollment at 37 as an example. I think St. Cloud at 110, but if we say we want to increase those target numbers, that's a whole separate conversation.
It is, and I really need to wait till June 30th to set a firm number, because ALCO will continue. We may onboard some more kids and something, so, but I can give you today's data as best I
I
can.
understand. Thank you.
So
Okay.
on F,
The next one is F, yes.
Summer camp, that's 14 summer camp numbers. This is under STEM. And then the 6th grade, we don't have, this will be a baseline year for that strategy as we go forward.
G?
Okay, under ACT, it's on. Did you, okay. This is, when I'm looking at 11th grade, we requested the data for ACT, and I need to be able to disaggregate it by 10th and 11th graders taking it, and we have worked a lot on our 1s and 2s taking it, but I do not have the data that I can share with you on my 11th grade nor my 10th grade that I want to work on. I can get it, but it's going to take me another month or so to be able to actually put the data in there from even the 14th school year. At the end of June, 1st of July, I could start looking at the 14-15 data. So I don't have either the last year data or baseline data for the ACT one.
H? No? Then it's I?
Oh, hold on.
I
Go
thought
back
there
up just
was
a little
one,
bit.
it's something.
Okay, if y'all remember from the presentation on Reach for the Stars, last year we had 100.
Wait, this is on H?
It is on
It
Reach
is.
for the Stars. 103 seniors that are currently in the program.
This is under 3B, under 1HB.
Yeah, it's the actual target at the bottom, down there, Jay, at the very
Yeah,
bottom.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, I will be able to give you junior data, the number of juniors in there, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. In other words, we got a very solid group in there now, but I didn't want to put it in there until I verified that number.
Can you also, when you provide it to us, break it down by school so we can see there's, 15 at Liberty,
Absolutely.
22 at Gateway?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
I?
Okay,
This is I.
let me just make sure I'm reorienting myself at the same spot.
That doesn't look right. What is
Okay.
that one?
Yeah, this is down to the strengthen and accelerated pathway. Okay.
I have, wait a minute, wait,
Okay.
what, which one is that one?
I.
Aye.
I is Avid, correct?
Mm-mm.
Oh, AP exam.
Is that?
Is 9/11?
It may have skipped it.
Okay, I may skip, okay, I got it. Rigor, okay.
Okay, so in 14, we have the pass rate there for the AP exams. We do have current number of students in dual enrollment, so that's one that we actually have the 15 data on. Remember, we shared that, I think we went from 870 something to 911 increase this year, but in other words, we do have our current number of kids that have taken a dual enrollment class. And we have the 14 pass rate for AP. I just don't have the 15 pass rate
Well,
yet.
similar to that, though, you should also have the number of students who are in AP classes right now enrolled versus last year. I mean, it's not in there, but I would think just like you've got the information on something you just alluded, dual enrollment, you should know the number of students that are taking AP courses.
Let me think for a second, Jay. Okay, so
Okay, you
the
said
question
exam.
would be, do you want to add that as a target?
Well, I don't, it gives you some perspective. You say 33% or 0.7% are passing, is it 33.7 out of 200, out of 1,000? I mean, it's just, it's a total, I mean.
So, let me just make sure, Jay, do you want us to increase the number
I don't know
of
that I want to see the
AP?
increase, I want to see the data. I'd like to know how many kids were in it last year, how many kids are in it this year. You got a 33.7% pass rate, is that a 33.7% pass rate out of 1,000 students or out of 500 students? And so that way I've got some perspective, so I
Okay.
can't say go up or down without.
And it should be in there, but some reason it's kicked down. In other words, I put that in there from mine and your discussion. Increase the number of the pass rate, and then the third one should be the number of students taking the AP one.
Yannelis is not there.
I think it's kicked down as the problem.
Want the number of students?
taking AP exams.
I'd like to see how it's trending too. I don't want to just see I want to see like over, two
Yes, sir, I got
years
you.
or 3 years,
Yeah. I'm
Is
totally
it going
with you.
up, is it going down?
Yeah, it may be.
And how is the pass rate in previous? Was the pass rate 28% before or 34% before? Is that going up or
Yeah,
down?
we've got it,
Right.
but I don't see that.
Right,
either.
okay, put that in there in blue, so that way we come back and catch that.
Okay, 1J.
Those are all the changes in one, right?
No, ma'am, that's as
No,
far as
there's-
we got, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So
yes.
1J,
What else
there's
do we
nothing in
have?
1J?
Wait, hold on.
I did have one M change.
Okay.
M as in Mary?
Mary.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The number of STEM-focused elementary schools is actually going from 4 to 9,
Okay.
not 8. And the additional elementary school is Neptune Elementary. So 1M, letter A,
Let's just change that to 9.
yes, please.
Okay, are there any other changes on this that were,
No, okay, we're still, we've been working on this.
I don't understand. That's why.
Is there anything in N?
So
N,
Neptune, what's that?
Yeah.
yes,
Neptune
Neptune
Elementary.
Elementary, thank you.
Okay. Under O,
Oh,
which has, no, it'd be N,
N?
Yeah, it'd be
Okay.
N, and it deals with opportunities to decrease the achievement gap and just working on opportunities for students with disabilities. Ms. Luciano wanted me to explain a little bit about the unified sports. That is a caveat or an area within Special Olympics. I didn't have a chance to put it in here, but it deals with the opportunity for
The Special Olympics.
it is,
It's
but
part of it.
it is part of it, but what it does is it gives students with disabilities the opportunity to participate in team sports. It's a great program, and we want to get that started in some of our comprehensive high schools. So I didn't want you not quite clear on what unified sports was. It's one specific area within Special Olympics. I've been trying to increase that, so it's a great opportunity for us
And I
to.
think that's great. The only catch with that is, and we're gonna be judicious, there's some kids who shouldn't be playing football, there's some kids who shouldn't be in rugby, we don't want kids getting hurt.
No, it's specifically for students with disabilities.
Swimming
and they
and
will be
track and things like
Yeah,
that.
they'll be paired with some counterparts out of general education courses. And it's well-run, it's well-supervised, and it gives all students to have that opportunity for a full high school experience. I just want to make sure.
Will
everybody's-
coaching staffs need any special training or additional coaches?
Yes, sir.
or some- Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a different coach. It may be somebody like, they do a basketball program that's really, really good, but it's somebody that needs to know not only basketball, but how to coach students with
Well,
a
think
special
about it.
need.
Corey Green's a great example at Celebration High School. He's the head basketball coach, head track coach. He's also an ESE instructor.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's got programs to run.
Right. Okay, so,
I think
Good
that's it.
combination.
Do you have-
Oh, he's a great guy, too.
We wanted to also
Which one is it?
call your attention, I think back to M, I apologize
It's
for going
okay.
back. It doesn't indicate the targets.
We got A, B, C, D, which one?
It's 1M as in Mary.
Right, and then-
At the end of all the letters, it says targets, and then it has the word set.
Correct.
They should be in there, but they're not. This is typing them in. But this is baseline year to measure the number of schools where we are going to have the mobile STEM lab visit to fifth grade Title I school, fifth
So
graders
so
at
what should be in
Title
there
I
that's not,
schools.
that's a baseline year?
Yes, for the number of schools visited by the mobile STEM lab.
Now, is that mobile STEM lab something we own or something that's
It
coming from the
is-
state?
It is something we own. We're in the process of, it's one of,
It's Title I funds, right?
yes, the Title I
Yes.
funds.
I'll tell you, after school is out in June, because I want you to be using it, before a board meeting, if you could have it here so we could take a look at it, that'd be great.
We're anticipating that it'll be here in September.
Oh, it's not here yet?
No, sir. It's in the
No.
process of
It's-
getting
Well, don't show-
manufactured.
We're building it.
Don't, bring it here, don't show it to us, do it after school gets out. We'll go, I'll go to a school and see it, I
Okay.
don't want to see it here.
You'll see it when it gets rolled out.
I want to see it, let me know what school it's at, I'll go visit that school.
I'm driving it, so I'll bring it by.
Are you licensed to drive that?
Of course.
Okay. Just asking.
It's getting goofy.
DBQ.
Okay, that's right.
Any other?
This one goes. with
There is
something
one more,
with-
where that
What
goes
letter?
back. Social
It's another
studies.
acronym we
Yes,
needed to-
what letter was that?
The DBQ one.
Oh,
D,
that was under
1D.
social studies.
1D.
Yeah, we just, Mrs. Luciano asked us to clarify DBQ, it stands for document-based questions.
Right.
It's a strategy used in social studies. Kids look at multiple sources, usually primary sources, and
Document-based
answer a series of questions therein. Document-based questions.
And that's a strategy embedded in reading, which uses a scenario that has to do with social studies. And it is an opportunity for students to embed the strategies of reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Applied knowledge.
Very,
So
yes,
that'd be
it's very
important.
engaging, very engaging.
So those are, I would prefer that we just do one at a time, and then we'll bring up the other staff members. So if there's questions in regards to any of these, please, it's a good time to ask questions. Or anything you'd like to add or edit.
Okay. Go around.
I've got a bunch of questions. One of them is just very general, because I just don't understand it yet. With the FCATs where we had the A, B, Cs, Ds, whatever, we will have, the state will issue a same letter grade, even though it's the different types of tests, the inner course and all that stuff?
They're anticipating that in December.
Okay. So we will still get designation as an A, B, or a C.
We believe so.
And I guess the other question I have is our stretch goal, and this may be the only measurement, I just want to ask the question. You know, we've heard over and over again through different groups and that the pressure that this grade applies, you know, we're a C, we got to be a B, we got to be a B. And I don't know that I really want to take that pressure off, but are we missing a component to this other than the pure letter grade? Is there another type of measurement that should be used in conjunction with the letter grade? I don't know, I'm just kind of asking the question. I'm asking it from an area of very little understanding, so.
But this is why we're having the workshop, so that we can have these kind of conversations. Go ahead, Michael.
I just want to make sure we're judging, if the letter grade's right, I'm good. If it's right plus something, I'm good with that. I mean, I just don't,
One of the things that we talk about, Clarence, all the time is that graduation rate for high school, but I think in general, me and Mike will set making sure that we know we have that end goal that they have got to graduate. And so getting that graduation rate to, you know, we'd love to be able to, this coming year, get it above 85%. Because that is our business, is getting kids graduated from high school.
should that be in addition to, in this stretch goal then? Or is it in the?
It is in there.
It's in there as
Resulting
part
in improvement of school grade learning gains and graduation rate.
Graduate, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I just kind of wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
Because we have that discussion a good bit. I've got some questions on several of these as you go through. Tim, you want me just to go to those?
I think what the superintendent's looking for at this point is in goal number 1 specifically.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yes,
like,
please.
1E. I know this year we've got some TICO areas that are down in enrollment from our out of, what I call them, our non-traditional 18-year-old and under student. Should we have a goal in place under 1E for a very specific marketing type plan to increase that enrollment?
Yes, sir, there is one.
Yes, sir, did I miss it?
Yes, sir, it's E up under there. We have secured a PR firm to promote and increase that enrollment at those TICOs, but keeping in mind that TICO Central is the only one we've had, this year is our first year for TICO St. Cloud.
That's what I was looking for. I just missed it.
Yes, sir. Okay.
How much is the PR fund
How much?
Yeah.
The contract was for 40,000.
per year?
No, sir, for now until it concludes in December. When does it, right? Yes. So considering the time that we've allotted there, we're putting a lot of effort and funds into that.
We're down a good bit of total dollars, Jay, from our total budget.
Yes, sir, we are, and a lot of that has to do with how the actual state is funding that now. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Well, it's the state funding, plus it's also the individual.
Matriculation or registration
Right,
into
the
those courses.
registration being down is also, by people who are paying their own way is down too, right? We're stunned. Isn't the TICO funding down pretty significantly by individuals who would pay their own way, not
Yeah,
being
the
there?
TICO funding is done correctly. The ELCO funding is being affected because of what we're allowed to actually bill for those adult programs. So that both of them are being affected, but mainly in the TICO section.
Well, let me jump on, because that was one of the areas I had made a quick point as well, is, first of all, I fully support the idea of the PR firm and making sure that we bolster the awareness of what's happening there. That was obviously a major focus of the board. We worked hard to get those campuses open, and we need to make sure that that's filling out. ALCO provides value, and I recognize that, but I really want to see a greater emphasis on the TICO side and people actually going to get those certifications so that they can then go and get gainful employment. So I know that's probably the big thing. I would say as well that we have to think about the TICO campuses much like we would our business. And what are we doing to help bring people across the threshold there? It's a different model than our typical K-12 model, and the fact that people are here and they come and they need to and all that. So just for what it's worth, my personal opinion is we need to do anything we can within reason, obviously, to bolster that and increase the awareness. And I think it also supports the idea of what we had worked with the county on to make that take place in the first place.
So
To
the
me, it
current
doesn't-
enrollment is up there. I
Right.
don't know that we glossed over that or missed it. And that's
I
included
saw
up there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
When we see the plan from the PR firm, I'd like to see what their marketing plan is.
okay, we can get that for you.
And you said that only goes until December? It's
Yes,
not an
sir.
annual?
That was this part of the year right here, and we're trying to measure those objectives to get it,
how it's
enrollment
working.
increased for August.
Did they go through
And you-
competitive selection, this firm? or how-
Yes,
Okay.
yes, there were, how many did we start out with, Belinda? In the 4, yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna revisit this in January then, after some of these goals have been met?
I would think we were gonna review, this particular
This one.
issue would be about a September, October, we would look at the enrollment then. Because
Okay.
we can only onboard students there literally after July, starting in August, and then again in January.
Okay.
So we have 2 really big times when we're gonna onboard kids.
Okay.
So we'd have to measure whether that's working earlier and not wait till the end of the year.
I agree with Mr. Wheeler. I'd like to see what they're doing, and I'd like us to think in a very untraditional manner with regard to how we get the word out and utilize, much like we talked about with, social media, website.
Yes, sir.
What do we need to do in these areas to make sure that everybody is aware, leveraging the Chamber of Commerce. There's appointed an area council for that one. There's a St. Cloud Chamber. There's St. Cloud councils. I really think we need to work hard to get those entities help supporting that as well.
And in January, after their contract is up, I want to see some metrics on a return on investment. What are $40,000 get us? And maybe there are some intangibles, and I get that. But I'd like to see, we started out at X and now we're at X plus 2 or X plus 5 or whatever that is. I mean, I'd love them to be hugely successful. But if they're not, maybe we reallocate that money for something else next year.
No, well, in September, we would measure the success by the actual students in the seat there. So
Okay.
it's not gonna be,
We'll talk to you about it after Labor Day
Okay.
then.
Yeah.
That works. I just think in terms of their contract.
okay, so you wanna report or to see what the actual firm's strategies are.
And see what and then after that, see what the ROI is once we got
Gotcha.
kids sitting in seats.
Yes, sir.
Clarence?
1G, this is the one about improving the college career readiness. I guess one thing I've heard a bunch over the last several months about our college counselors and our guidance counselors in high schools particularly are all being pulled out of, excuse me, their counseling jobs and proctoring tests. And I'm wondering, as when we're looking at goals, if we're gonna achieve these things, do we need to have those people doing what they need to do, or is that, they may not be being told the whole story either, but my concern is we got people dedicated to helping us. If we're not allowing them to do that, it makes this goal pretty difficult.
Right. Clarence, I could completely agree with you on the issue. The concern that a principal will have is literally being able to cover all the bases during the day when the testing season's going on. So I don't have a resolution for that issue coming up. These large high schools, they all have a testing coordinator. Mike, I mean,
No,
what do you
and I
think?
guess I'm not looking for the solution. I'm wondering though, as part of our strategies, if it is an issue and it's a real problem, should we have that as a strategy to try and find a solution? That's kind of where my question was
Is it,
coming from.
Clarence, because the board had talked about this some in the past, and we had a presentation regarding what counselors were doing and the work that takes place about trying to figure out how to increase the number of counselors. Is that specifically what you're alluding to?
I don't know if it's increase the number of counselors or figure out a way to have other certified teachers do the proctoring and let the counselors do their jobs during the springtime as opposed to.
Or can subs do the proctoring?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Can subs do, subs make considerably less than our regular
I
teachers.
think you have
They
to
have
be
to-
qual-
They
you have
gotta
to
be a certified
qualified,
teacher, right?
certified.
They have to, well, no, they have to go through a process of taking
Yeah.
a class and be certified to take that particular, to administer the assessment itself.
How much is the class? I mean, we.
No,
get a
we
bunch of
can do
subs,
that
but
within,
No,
but-
my point is maybe we get a bunch of subs who aren't certified to do it.
No, so substitute, you have to be certified, you have to have a teaching certificate in order to administer.
Just to proctor the
state
test.
assessment.
Yeah.
To proctor, you do
Then,
not.
And
and
then
then
you
take
Administer, you do.
extra,
Yeah, okay.
Proctoring
Yeah.
the test is
So it would
simply
have to
walking
be-
around
I'm
monitoring
thinking of them both.
students.
as one and the
Anyone
same.
who is a substitute who has
a
a
teaching
teacher's
certificate.
certificate.
That was true, yes.
But then they'd have to also take the class to administer the assessment.
Should we identify and reach out to them?
So I guess that's kind of my point. Now we've got, not only we have our
I think-
counselor doing it, we're having
I think
taken
it
classes
was-
to learn how to,
I, I think that that's a really good strategy
Yeah.
that we
Let me-
can look at.
Let me
Yeah.
ask a question to all you. This class they have to take, is this something just so the FDOE gets their $30 or $40?
No, it doesn't cost us any money. It's really just how to administer an assessment, how to proctor assessment so that no one gets in
Do
trouble.
you, okay, so you think.
So we
there's-
do that
So you
within.
think there's real value in someone taking it? Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
It's not just,
Oh,
it's not just, check
No,
off the
no,
no,
box.
no.
Okay.
Even with it, we sometimes have
And I don't know, that's why I asked.
issues. I think, I believe though that it's something that we could look into.
Does
Looking
it have to
at
be a
those
current teaching certificate, or can it be just
current.
so any sub that has a current teaching certificate?
Could administer the test.
retirees, can retirees come back to this?
Yeah, as long as
a-
their certificate is.
That's
current.
what my question,
Yeah.
But if they're-
retirees, but it still has to be a valid certificate.
That would have them, most of them
Yeah.
renew them
A lot
before
of
they
them, yeah.
retire.
Yes.
Just for that they get
You
their.
have some people in mind, don't you, Mr.
No, I don't, no.
No, but actually,
he
I don't,
does.
does it cost money to renew them, I assume?
My
Yes, it
mother might
does.
I
have
mean,
one
is that,
person.
is that something worth us pursuing if somebody says, I'm not spending the $100, right?
I don't know how
Well,
much
I
it
think,
is.
well, usually the retirees
It's-
I
decide
don't know
whether
how
they
to
really
really
want
do
to
that.
continue subbing or not. But I do like the idea, and I think that we should add that in regards to finding some relief
Yeah.
for others in possibly proctoring the assessments.
I mean, I understand why they're getting them to do that. I'm just not sure that it's conducive to meeting this goal.
Well, I don't think we've ever even thought about
Yeah.
using those substitutes who are, past teachers that are certified.
I like that we're on the same page with it. I would say though too, we need to figure out and in your strategy, what the measurements on that about defining what lessening the burden or increasing the number of people doing it really means. Because I'd hate to think that we put it in here, we agree that it's a good idea, but then at the end of the year, everyone says, well, really, I still was stuck with the same stuff, and it doesn't accomplish what Mr.
What's the
Thacker's point
ROI on
is.
it?
But,
Everything costs more.
Yanellis, can
Let's
you
spend $1 once.
kind of write that one in, maybe at the bottom of the page? Then we'll determine where we're gonna put them into what particular goal, but I think it's a really good idea. Did you get the gist of it? Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I've done on this, as far as just the allocation of counselors in general, is that I'm trying to get it, and this number is high, guys, but this is where we're at. I would like to keep it under 500 to 1 at those high school counselors, and that's kind of been my target number as we go into allocations this year. So OHS will actually be looking to add a position on there, and then Liberty was the other one that was higher than that intended number. So I've worked with, and again, that's just allocating the resources that are at the school in the right manner. So I've really heard the discussion on that. And the other thing is, again, having that discussion about what are the career specialists doing, and do we have some time during the summer that we can OPS the career specialist, and the Schumachers work with that to make sure that can occur too. So I think we've gotten some very good constructive feedback on
I gotta
that.
ask you a question. Can we get it done at 400 to 1?
Everything has a price.
I understand that. This is a price worth paying. These doesn't help a lot of kids. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but, 500 to 1's great, 400 to 1's better. I know it's still not optimum, 250 to 1's optimum, we're not gonna get there. So 400 to 1 gets us closer to that than 500 to 1.
That would be new allocations to high schools, which would probably cost you $400,000 or $500,000
I
to
can't think
achieve
of a
that.
better investment than our kids.
I don't disagree with Jay, but you're already in a red situation, so I can't.
And the strategic plan,
In
when
for
we're
a penny,
looking,
in for a pound.
and when we're looking at strategic plan, we're not usually looking at adding positions at any time. It's really looking at what we can do with what we have. And just as you're talking about high school, I just want you to also know that our elementary guidance counselors are in this position also, especially if they're not a title school. Title school has many different resources in there, and the non-title schools do not, so those counselors land up in the same position as those high school ones.
I wasn't
So it's a
leaving them
real-
out, except we were on
Yeah.
the goal of the
Yeah.
college.
But
readiness.
what I'm saying is, you're absolutely correct when it comes to the type of strategy.
I have a question before you go on, because I don't want to lose on this point. Why, I didn't know that was a rule, or what is the philosophy behind us, why in strategic planning we don't consider
Money?
as part, adding positions? Why
Well,
is that, why is that
They
something?
do drive
that-
one another, though. I mean,
Absolutely.
The strategic plan creates the idea, which then the budget gets built around, which then the allocations are built off of, but.
Correct.
It's not a,
So-
I mean, it's
so-
not
It's
a
not
direct,
direct.
it's indirect.
It's indirect. It's indirect, it's not direct. In strategic planning, any strategic planning that I've done, we've never indicated, even in our schools, we will add one more
Okay,
counselor
I
to
understand,
that.
okay, that
That's-
makes sense, but,
okay.
but if what we're considering here is trying to reach a goal of 401,
Mm-hmm.
and that necessarily would probably mean adding positions, does that mean that we don't talk about a 401 goal?
We can talk about possibly decreasing.
No, you're good.
Or increasing the number
Take a
of
couple of my
counselors.
things,
No, you
but
can't even say it that way. We just have to be very careful, because once we write this down, what we're looking at is looking at the entire budget. And as we go from one goal to another, we will, if we're not careful, we will continue to add positions into them. So rather than looking at positions and money, it's really what strategy, as what Clarence was saying, the strategy is, let's look for a method of finding different proctors. So then we may find that it's gonna cost us a little money, that's fine, but what he didn't say was, pay for proctors to do such and such, or add more guidance counselors in our schools. So when we are looking at these particular strategies,
So when is the proper time to address that we want to have a ratio? We want to get to the optimum. We're kind of far from that.
we would be able, we can say that if we were to say research, or, research the implementation of possibly decreasing the number of students to one counselors.
And psychologists, and social workers, I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean,
Yeah, and here's-
our ratios are all out of whack.
They're
But
all-
here's the thing, as we have these conversations, there's three things that need to happen. Number one is we all need to agree on what is it that we're trying to achieve. Then we make recommendations based on the strategies that might need to get there. And the third piece then is that the budget is built around that. It's a preliminary budget, which then ultimately comes back to us to say, look, this is what you asked for, and this is what it costs. And at that point, we're gonna have to circle back and say, well, this was a great idea of 250 to 1, but we just simply don't have the money to do that.
It's
All of
it's a
this-
plan, it's not a
Exactly.
strategic requirement.
Yeah, all of this needs to happen, because if we're talking about, and we're all having a similar idea about lowering the ratio of students to counselors, then you guys need to hear that. Then you guys need to build the strategies and the budgeting to support that. And then if it's not a real number that's going to be able to work, we need to be able to see that, and then we need to be able to make decisions. Because we can sit here today and lay out all of our dreams and ideals and goals, and that's fine. But then the numbers are what ultimately is going to end up mapping it out. I think Mel's point is that they already know that the numbers are tough, and if we start going too hard on these type of things, we're going to end up basically creating the exact opposite of what we're going to want to talk about when we get to our budgeting component of this plan.
Well,
It just almost feels as though the strategic plan is really, at this juncture, at this stage that we're at, is really being driven by budgetary concerns. While I agree with what you're saying, that's not what's actually it doesn't feel like that's what's going on. In other words, why don't we just put it out there and then see what can be accomplished, as to say we can't do this, so let's not even go there. It almost
I
feels like
agree
that's
with
the
you.
approach that we're taking almost.
No, I think
And
I
I'm
agree.
using just this as an example, and how this type of approach can permeate other areas. If it could be determined, or at least explored, that a strategic goal is to have a better ratio of guidance counselor to students, then what, the consequences of that will come later, but just because it's gonna affect the budget, or we're gonna go ahead and just not set it out as a goal?
We can consider it, of course we can consider it, and then go back to looking at our budget. And then, as Jay said, how many other positions would we need?
Sort of social workers or
But we
something.
I guess what we want is to say, all right, let's see where we wanna take this, and then let's find out what the consequences are, and let's be driven by, instead of saying, well, look at what the consequences are and let's not go there.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the difference might be that these guys have been looking through this at detail and looking at the allocations that are aligned to it at a more intimate or detailed level. And so when we say, hey, we want this, they're like, okay, we know you want it, but hey, we've already looked at that. You don't have the money for it, and you're going to end up telling me in the end that you know the money for it. But I don't disagree that that's an important part of this
I don't
conversation. That's
see-
why we're here.
Yeah, I don't know if that thinking is really productive when you're talking about strategic plans and
We-
vision.
Well, and that's just my, I didn't put words in your mouth.
okay,
That's
all right.
just my thought.
And the conversations that we have had about the budget, we are really constrained, and you know that. So, are we willing to put it in here? We're willing to put it in here, and then there's just come back. This is, this particular plan, any plan, a strategic plan, you have to look at on a daily basis. We've been looking at this. So we can always come back and say, we've now looked at the budget with Todd, looked at what we have. It's not something that we can do, and we just have to tell you it's something, and this is why. And then you can determine, okay, well, we really, really want this, so we'll eliminate something else.
Right.
We've got to stop thinking about ourselves in terms of being victims of our own budget to a certain
Yeah,
degree.
just-
Now, with that said though, the budget is real. We need to be thinking about ways we can generate more revenue. I think that's something we really need to consider going forward, because everything that we're talking about, I don't care if it's compensation, number of positions, technology, capital improvements, new furniture, everything.
Let's goal 5.
There's, what's that?
That's goal 5.
Yeah.
Goal 5, 6, and 7. I think that we really need to embrace ways to generate revenue, not profits, counselor, but revenues.
I think we're all on, at least from what I'm hearing from the board, we're all on the same page, but we want to be able to put out our big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And what it is we'd love to see happen. And then you guys will have to work through that with us to give us the numbers that are going to attribute to it.
You got it?
Yeah.
And Yanela has written it down already, okay?
Very good.
Do you mind if I step in here since we're there? On the 1G, with the summer hours for career specialists, that's the one thing that they have, several of them, and I sent you guys the emails, have expressed to me they think would make a big difference. So, but I don't see that in here as part of the plan, or am I missing it?
What is it that you,
No,
These summer hours.
no, we could put it in there if we need to, but it is something that has been implemented for this coming summer.
Okay.
In response to some of the discussions we've had about working with the students and getting those career goals and plans in place. We could dang sure put it in there. The money has actually been allocated in there and shifted around to do that. So Ms. Schumacher's been able to get that accomplished, but we can do that if you
I
want
think
to.
it should be put in there.
Okay.
Summer hours for
Let's add it.
counselors?
Summer hours for the career specialists
Summer hours.
to aid with these kids coming in as seniors. This is when they trying to get a lot of the pre-work done
Right.
as far as their application. That's what they've expressed to me. I've sat down with several of them, and that's what they've expressed to me. If they had the time in the summer to come
He
in
has contacts.
and work with these parents and
Yes, ma'am.
students, so they could get a lot done. And then that would open up some more doors throughout the year to have a lot of it done in, July.
I agree. I like that. The only caution I would raise is that, I'd hate to have someone, and I'm not implying that they'd be sitting there doing nothing, but we need to make sure that if they're there,
Oh,
there's
no,
plenty,
yes,
plenty
certainly.
of clientele if you were to
Certainly.
serve. So, but
Certainly.
okay.
Yeah, we went ahead and put that in place, sir, and made that work out.
Good.
So
Thank you.
appreciate y'all bringing that up to us.
Mr. Thacker, we're still with you.
One eye, which is which I really like the goal of for our gifted and talented students. A couple questions I just had on it. I see you're using the STAR testing to measure them. I was just curious how cumbersome the STAR, all we hear is about test. I don't know if that's a cumbersome type test to administer or not. Is there another way to kind of measure them without that testing, if it is indeed cumbersome, and I don't know the answer to that. The other thing that's I got 2 other points on this one. The thing that strikes me just kind of interesting when I was reading it, is offering the more advanced classes early on in middle school, and then I'm assuming obviously that would follow into high school. Do we have any kind of goal about, it's great to take some of the advanced classes and get algebra out of the way and geometry and some of these things, but do we have anything that's really creative and exciting that gets these kids motivated, that's almost beyond a geometry class?
Gaming curriculum. Gaming curriculum. Those
Well,
kids
or
love
some
it.
things like,
sure.
and I guess
So-
that's just kind of my question. Maybe
Perhaps.
that's the answer. If that's it.
I think maybe you're alluding to CTE courses, perhaps electives offered in middle schools?
Just different
Technology.
uh,
That's really what-
technology and things that
that's
just
really what
are
young-
highly motivating to kids that are in that gifted stuff. I just want to make sure we're really, in
Yeah.
our strategies, we are really
that-
Well, the
pushing our,
kids-
doing more for our kids and
You
just
need-
saying, we have
you-
calculus 2 class for you.
You need to see Kelly
Stuff-
Cotton give a presentation on Teacher of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see someone who knows how to get kids excited?
Yeah.
Kelly Cotton wrote she is the gold standard.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to talk about the STAR and this, because I think we
You
need
want to talk
both.
about this? Okay.
Yeah, because
Please,
I have
please.
some questions
Yeah.
on that as well.
Okay, so the STAR will be administered to K through 8 in math and reading, and that is actually progress monitoring, and we have to give an assessment that measures the reading anyways. The test takes no longer than 1 class period.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's something that's in place, and it's just become part of our routine. In fact,
It's not something they do every month or something. then?
once
Or
every
is it
quarter.
Every quarter?
Yeah, at the end of every quarter, the kids take the assessment. There are times when the kids take more. If it's an intensive class, they might take the assessment every 4 weeks, but generally it's every 9 weeks.
So then the other question was in regards to other courses.
Yeah, so a lot of the students that we're talking about here, the top of the top students, they find geometry exciting. They find the English honors exciting. But there are other accelerated classes that are not necessarily core academic in nature. We have high school Spanish in some of our middle schools. There is high school computer keyboarding classes and things of such.
It's my turn to speak. You'll see.
Did you have other ideas?
Well, I guess I kind of think of more as doing things as opposed to sitting in a class. And I don't,
Talk Project Lead the Way, Mark.
just project oriented, maybe somebody goes to NASA for a month. I mean, some things that are really out there that are different from just traditional sitting in a classroom at school, I guess is where I'm coming from. And I don't know what it is, because I'm certainly not an educator.
Well, Clarence,
But
that's
I know
part of-
doing things always got me a lot more excited than doing geometry equations.
And one of the technologies that I try to go ahead and share with the board about what I learned about is definitely not just gaming, but there's website development, apps development, working with the phones, with the technology that drives all of this. That's something that should be opened up to students. And I tell you that, from my research, that's a very exciting. Very few districts are doing it, but the ones that are doing it are reporting that it's just breakthrough. And it's just another thing in the careers. The money in that, I think that we all use consultants for our own personal business websites. It's amazing.
If you want to generate money and get these kids into high-paying jobs, I've talked with Dr. Akes, I believe, and Mrs. Pinks about cybersecurity. I mean, there's high schools offering cybersecurity
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
that would come from that.
And there's negative unemployment. They can't hire enough people.
Yes. And you learn that from working with these platforms. It's a new thing.
If we're on the subject, can I bring your attention to 1M, expand and continue to strengthen STEM in our schools? I know in B, Project Lead the Way, it's a STEM curriculum. It is fantastic, has included a lot of the points of discussion around the table here. So, we're continuing to expand that class. It's going to be in nearly all of our middle schools. There are components that include, there's a medical component, medical detectives would be a semester course. There's programming, there's engineering, so it's part hands-on, part computer-based.
I'm going to come back to STAR in a second, but I want to kind of land on this for a moment. I watched your TEDx video that you sent to us as well, and I see kind of the idea of what you're talking. That's what you're referencing in some regard, I assume.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot out there besides that. That's
Sure.
one of the best ones.
No, but I saw. So the hook is important, and the energy and the excitement is important. The challenge becomes that there's certain requirements and standards that we have to meet, and there's certain programming approaches that we need to hit throughout the day. It doesn't mean we can't be innovators. We need to be. I guess my point in setting all that up is, what about expanding clubs and those type of things in that arena? And if that becomes the hook that ultimately becomes the most effective and maybe solves some of the, and I'm not saying this is the driving force, do not misinterpret my words, but if that solves some of the after-school latchkey kid care scenarios that we deal with in society anyway, but it creates excitement and a hook for kids, and there's something that they want to stay an extra hour or two after school, there's an educator that's competent and passionate about that, but it doesn't directly affect what has to happen throughout the day in meeting our local and our state standards and so on. That might help hit some of what these two guys are talking about, which I agree with.
Then there's transportation issues.
No, there are, and I get that, but I'm just saying if we all agree that creating more of these, like I think it would be really cool, and I have to suspect there'd be students that would say, oh, we're doing a mobile app development club, I'm all in, you know, whatever. And so if that's the case, and that creates the excitement, which then undergirds the importance of everything that they've been learning throughout the day anyway, but it becomes a one-off as opposed to taking away from the limited amount of time we already have during the school day, that to me may be the way to solve some of this and create the ideal of what we're talking about. And I don't know if there's a direct, if number one, if we can do it, number two, if we can afford it, number three, the logistics associated with it, but then also, is there going to be a one-for-one benefit or gain that we realize off of it? I think, you know, in an idealistic idea, yeah, I think it does. I think it creates energy and excitement. So that might lend to, it might be something for you guys to explore for us.
I just want to make sure, I think there's two things going on. One of them is the clubs, and I think through 21st century, we have some of those hands-on resources. But then I don't know, Clarence, if you're really referring to elective classes throughout the school day.
Wasn't necessarily even, I guess what I was looking at in my mind, and obviously I'm not articulating it very well, is more different from a traditional going to a classroom for 50 minutes.
And I've got, and I think I know where you're going. I'm going to ask a question. Do we have at all of our high schools, are all of our high schools competing in robotics competitions ending up at UCF?
There's a lot of them that are doing either robotics, TSA, there's numerous of them, not necessarily just robotics.
If you've been to these robotics competitions at UCF, those are the ones who go through regionals and they get,
But there are others that also.
These kids are, you don't have to wake these kids up to go to school. These are, to your point, Clem, these are kids who are, let's go. The bus is going. And I'm not suggesting, to your point, Melba, I don't know that there is a silver bullet necessarily, but I'm using that to illustrate Clarence's point. And I don't know what other programs there are that really get kids. I see this gaming thing is new for us. We're in our first year, and there's a lot of kids excited about it, which is great. Robotics, these kids who really compete and do it, these kids, you can't get them out of school. So I don't know what other programs similar. I know in Polk County they've got an aquaculture thing in middle school where these kids, they're going in on weekends, they're going in, during holidays because they got to take care of the fish. So I don't know what other programs there are that we can engage in, but to Clarence's point, we want to get these kids excited.
I just want to, bottom line, make sure that we are pushing this, some of our best and brightest. We do a lot of things for a bunch of the other kids. I want to make sure our best and brightest are getting every opportunity to move them to.
Clarence, can I go after Clarence? If that's okay, because it's just
No,
so
we need to
interrelated
just-
to it. I only have one item, and it just goes right through with.
Yeah, everything just pop in where you need to.
And I have other items, but I already I could predict they're going to be brought up. So I'm just going to talk about this one. And it does have to do with that excitement and everything. It is something different than technology here. And this afternoon, we're going to have the dual enrollment information at the OHS at 6:30 p.m. And for the past year or so, I've been really, I think you guys know it, and Mr. Wheeler, when he brought in trying to get dual enrollments with other universities, I've been really doing my homework on this one, not just on how it's done here, but in other districts. And so this goes along with the guidance counselor thing, and so it ties all into this. Think about you know, if dual enrollment is a possibility for an 11th grader, and they just find out about it today, okay? Think about this, okay? They didn't think about dual enrollment when they're in 9th grade or 10th grade, but now they know it's available to them, and guess, voila, you know, they have the requirements, the qualifications to do it. Pre-dual enrollment curriculum. In other words, in the high schools, to start the dual enrollment preparation specific to majors in 9th and 10th grade. And, you know, have that be a focus for those students that Mr. Tacker was just talking about. Those are very motivated, that want the rigor, you know, the dual enrollment brings in, you know, at a high school, at the time that they're in high school, when they're 17 and 18. But to start preparing from it, I know IB, I know that's a lot of coverage, but there are some that it's just outside of that. And maybe a pre-dual enrollment type of, and make that as a strategic goal to develop that.
Yeah, I was thinking,
You
I
wanna
was
sh- we wanna-
thinking about
you
like
may want-
Courtney at Horizon. I
Yeah,
mean, she
you-
did her high school classes at Horizon, and then one time she got to OHS, took her
We-
college classes. So I mean,
Yeah,
Ahead,
but,
Mike.
but, right, but I think that is left, a lot of that is left to the individual, or maybe there are some teachers and guidance counselors that may be helpful in that respect. But what about something that is implemented as part of curriculum? That,
Yeah, so the accelerated classes in middle school for high school, you know, when they take the algebra, when they take geometry, when they take biology, that's really what we're trying to position the students to be able to take the college courses in the high school setting.
And along those same lines, we've been asking ourselves, what about the 4th and 5th grader? And so Dr. Bresendine and Mr. Allen have been working to try to work on an accelerated path room for the students. Again, we're talking about the students that are at the upper end of that bell curve, trying to make sure that we provide that pre-accelerated path coursework for middle school, and then it's the pre-dual enrollment APIB coursework in middle school. So in our, I guess, mind and thinking, that's exactly what we're trying to focus on with this one. I think it's a
Yeah.
great point.
how early it could go, I can imagine. But what I mean to say is that we already know that if you go into 9th grade, you have your traditional program, you have your IB, if you're qualified and you apply and you get accepted. But now there's, you know, a dual enrollment in a high school.
Yes, sir.
Says, you know what, you take what your major is, and this is what we recommend so that you can go ahead and do the rest of the classes, and depending on what dual enrollment, see, because now there's choices for dual enrollment. Now you have at least 3 different providers of it, and depending on what you do in those 2 years and what you want to study in terms of a major.
let me ask this, if this maybe hits on your point. I think about like the early years IB program and what you guys are doing to, you know, Thacker, Parkway, Gateway, Celebration. Is that kind of what you're hitting on? Is that earlier on kind of setting?
Yeah, a
So
real
as a parent, I
pre-dual.
say, I really want my student to do dual enrollment, and then here's the roadmap that they're going to be on. So a
Right
parent
from-
right now might say, I want my student in IB, so I'm going to put them at Thacker or Parkway. That's what you're hitting at?
Exactly, when you look at the
Being
high
more
school.
prescribed, I
When you
guess.
look at, when you look at the high school, let the dual enrollment plan begin the first day of freshman year. And I know it may be early, but a lot of
No, it's
what
not
it,
early. That's
I
not
think
early.
it's actually.
in terms of determining,
Yeah.
it may be a little early in terms of determining what kind of major or something like that. But remember that for the classes that you do in dual enrollment, it's mostly your lower division courses that pretty much cover a lot of things. And the advantage of it is, let's suppose there's very popular majors that are impacted, and this is where I want to go in the last, and I'll shut up. There's popular majors that are impacted. And the ability to compete, to be accepted into those majors, really have to do with, you know, prerequisites and how well you've done with them early on. I mean, just to get into a nursing program, you may have to wait 2 years for a spot.
I think the question I would have to that point then is what is already in place? Because I know for us, what we did, and we mapped that out, so when she got to high school, we already knew. But we did that at middle school, and we did it actually at Pleasant Hill, but that was a totally separate scenario. So I don't know how widespread that roadmap is really built through the district, and I think that might help answer your question.
It starts, like I said, it's been starting in middle school with its accelerated curriculum. And I think that Mr. Allen's trying to get that across all middle schools. But now we're asking ourselves, well, what do they need to do before they get to middle school? And is there a group of students out there that could benefit at the elementary end? So maybe farming that more of an affirmed pathway that Mr.
Yeah,
Soto
with
was
the
referring
branding
to.
or
And
something.
absolutely, absolutely.
Does that hit what you're saying? Kind of creating a pathway and branding it
I'm
so
more
people know
affirmed.
early on this
Yeah,
is, this is
something
where I
that's
wanna go.
already, exactly, something that's a lot more formal. Like, for example, the IB program, that's something that, you know, we implement in our schools. We have a contract, we have these things, and we do it.
It's prescribed.
And everybody gets, right.
It's already prescribed.
And we
Yeah.
have a STEM feeder
We have-
pattern as well,
So the dual enrollment, we'll treat it like that. Because really what it can be, it really is early, it's really early college.
Yes.
It's almost,
It is.
the only thing that's missing is that they're not some students may take the extra step, actually graduate, but a lot of people don't take that initiative or they don't want it for many reasons. But that's really what it is in ninth and 10th grade and earlier, as you pointed out. But at the very least, what I'm looking for, if it's possible, and if you can brainstorm on this, is to have a dual enrollment program that starts freshman year, high school. All the preparation, of course, is already there for a lot of students. That is an alternative to IB because a lot of people just don't, let's face it, I don't know if IB really could accommodate all of the students that we know that can't do that work. I think that I get a lot of calls every year about why I didn't get in. I'm like, well, from Gateway, obviously
It's
Gateway
easy,
parents will call
because the
me.
kid didn't have algebra 1 in 8th grade, that's 99% of the time.
And it's really doesn't have a lot of room, but it also gives it gives another option.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think just to,
That's right.
we create a pathway to dual enrollment, and I think to your point that Mr. Soto has to happen far beyond ninth grade. I mean, we gotta talk about this far earlier. I think that's really what you're hitting on,
Yeah.
because honestly, when you start ninth grade, it's not too late, but it's almost too late.
I know,
So-
but I want to set realistic strategic goals.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to go back to Clarence's point about going to NASA for a month or being more engaged. You know, is it in the plan about, I think, Dr. Akes, because you and I got to do some of this firsthand about working with our local economic development boards and being a part of those boards and creating workforces for those boards. Dr. Akes can tell you, and working with our local industries so that the kids at OHS can have the avionics training or an economic development board can come to the school and say, we have, you know, widget manufacturer coming in. Can you put in a widget manufacturing program in your high school? And I think that should be part of our goal going forward, kind of going to what Clarence is saying, creating more interest in jobs that are available locally. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
you had some other things.
And I think maybe
It's under
Bella,
1E.
the best way, I mean, some of these things that we're talking about are not gonna fit well within what maybe is already articulated on the plan. So and maybe they do, some will, some won't. Here's my point, is I just encourage you guys, which you probably are, have somebody, just take good notes on everything we're talking about. You guys will then go back and map these out and say that aligns with what we're talking about here, because we're gonna run out of time, and I think it's important for the board to be able to
Yep.
express the thoughts and ideas of where we wanna go
So time
without
certain.
trying to necessarily tie it directly into something that may pre-exist. Let you guys kind of work through that on the back
And
end.
there's at least 4 strategies that were mentioned right here.
Yeah.
So
And
under
I've
one,
got- But
1E.
it doesn't necessarily fall under. that.
Yeah, so I was
Right.
just a little more specific than what was put there, but that's all right.
Yeah, I think let us throw out the ideas, you guys take notes, and then
Yeah.
figure out where they belong after the fact, so we don't try to solve it all.
But you're right, it was sort of in there.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is good. Did you cover your point?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Tim.
Okay. I want to go back to STAR. We talked about that it's administered quarterly, so I guess that answers my frequency question. The fidelity question I would have, though, is how are we making sure that it's being administered quarterly with fidelity district-wide so that we have really quality data being provided? And I guess the follow-up to that then would be, because I'm using Fs, right? Frequency, fidelity, and the last one's focus. How are we ensuring that kids are focused and not just, I'm hearing that kids are rushing through it, they don't think it's important, oh my goodness, I already took it. I think that's gonna be an important piece for me to understand. I've sat with you guys and we've looked at STAR, great, I understand it, I think we need to have predictors, we need to know, we need to make sure we sent those benchmarks correctly, I mean, we know that. But how are we making sure that kids aren't just rushing through it? Is there data that says that a student takes it the first time and he takes 20 minutes or 40 minutes and the second time he takes 12 minutes? or
Right.
whatever, how are we making sure that it's really doing what it's designed to do? And then the last point I would add, which are a lot of points I know, is when I've gone on the reflective visits, one of the things I've enjoyed, and I think the last one I did with you, was we went in the classrooms and everybody had their little apples or charts or whatever they were, and Johnny was tracking how he was doing, how he's moving. Is there any visual reminder or indicator for the students? Peer accountability is a very powerful thing. Is there anything that's taking place so that students are being able to visually see on a day-to-day basis how they're doing? And first quarter they took STAR and they did this. Hey, second STAR monitoring, or whatever you're calling it, assessment, whatever's coming up, and I want to make sure I get up to this level so it becomes more real, and then it's just like, okay, yeah, well, I took it, but they said it's a predictor, but I don't really care. Does that all make sense? I shared a number of things, so I'd enjoy hearing
So
about
there
that.
is a timestamp on
Yes.
the STAR assessment, so it's can be very clear to the teacher, to the assistant principal, the principal, okay, well, this class, it's obvious that devoted time, and then you can automatically see, okay, spent 3 seconds on this question, 3 seconds on this question, and so forth. So there are patterns. I've had schools, I've worked with principals before, we bring the whole class back in sometimes to re-administer, or a certain select group therein.
Okay. What about, go ahead.
I'm just going to add that over the course of this second year when we've administered STAR, teachers have found it as a very valuable feedback tool for them to group students, especially at the elementary level. When they're doing the interventions and the intensive interventions now, it's spreading that more and more teachers are looking at STAR as their gauge of how are these students doing, and is the intervention that I've been using working? Are they actually making the progress that they need to make? So the teachers are wanting this to be as clean as possible as far as that data is concerned, because they sit with their principal, and principal and teachers have data chats, and they go over that data, so it is really in the teacher's best interest. From the elementary level, we did put out kind of like a guideline sheet, not as maybe tight as you would see with a statewide assessment, but it does have certain expectations as far as what you can and can't do while STAR testing. And monitoring the time the student is on the actual test is one of the guidelines, because we do want it to be as clean as possible when that data comes back. What you saw, and many schools are doing this because the principals share best practices oftentimes, is that students are tracking their own progress. And again, it's in their best interest, because this is how they're going to see how much growth have I made in reading and how much growth have I made in math. And so teachers are duplicating that data chat scenario that they had with their principal with their students. And that's I know that doesn't guarantee 100%, but it is something that we do certainly address and have an expectation that is set, that this is important data for us to have, and that must be accurate.
So I agree. Here's I think though for me the big part of this is we said STAR takes 40 minutes. You said, or one class period or something.
One class period for
So
the
50 minutes. Okay.
middle school.
And we say that, and that's okay. But we forget that that's just one of a number of assessments that are taking place, and so we go, okay, well, that's just 50 minutes, and it sounds okay, and it's quarterly, and it doesn't
4
sound.
times a year.
Yeah, but even at that, you go, okay, it's progress monitoring. It becomes predictive for us if all the benchmarks are set correctly and the predictors are in place, and it's going to directly correlate to FSA standards and so on and so forth. The challenge becomes, though, and I'm not saying we do away with STAR. That's not the point of this comment. The point of the comment is to understanding, is it working as well as we think it is? Is it the right tool? And I'm not saying it isn't. And then at some point, we have to have this conversation like we've been having about the number of assessments, the amount of time, and all those pieces. And I'm not using this as the martyr for the conversation. I'm just using this because it's one piece of this goal that I think is really important. And if I'm hearing that, well, Johnny and Jill just rushed through it because they said, well, I've taken it 4 times this year, 5 times this year, what do I really care? That's problematic because we're relying upon that information heavily, and as you just said, teachers and administrators are relying upon it. So I just want to make sure that it's there, that the frequency isn't too much, but yet not too infrequent at the same time, because we are relying heavily upon it. that it directly correlates with the outcomes that we're looking for it to ultimately produce, that the fidelity is in place so we can look from east to west and north to south in the county and say, yes, we know that everyone did it equally and it's with equity. And then also, again, that students aren't just rushing through it, and those points are key. And part of that has to be, so if, we're seeing some of the anecdotal type of information where students are going through 3 second, 3 second, 3 second, if that's literally like a minority of minority, okay, fine. But if it's more widespread than that, then I think we need to talk about how do we bring it top of mind so that students take buy-in to this. I mean, go back to Mr. Thacker's
Incentivize
point.
progress. Is
Yeah,
what basically
it's all about excitement. It's all about energy around education, and they need to understand that it's not just an assessment we're saying take it for the sake of taking it, but we're really using it as a tool to help drive instruction. And I don't know if there's a direct link missing or not, but I just wanted to have that conversation because I think it's an important one for us to talk about when we're talking about using this as a gauge or a tool for us.
Tim, and the last thing that you said, there's assessments that are meant to be diagnostic. And then there's assessments that are really a teaching and learning tool. From what I understand, from my memory serves me correctly, STAR happens to be the latter. And I think that's what you just pointed out. This is the kind of assessment that can be used, just like you just described, that does create excitement. It is part of the learning process. Oftentimes, you have assessments that are just diagnostic in nature, and I think those are the ones that we really have to go ahead, and I think it's part of a larger discussion as what we're doing with that. But then there's assessments that are just part of the teaching process, of the learning process, and those have a different impact on the student, and I think it's positive, in my opinion. But then again, that's just based on what I learned so far. And STAR seems to be that way. It's the kind of assessment that gets the teacher, not just the student, but the teacher's excited. Because that's what we're really talking about here as well, is the teacher side of the equation on how these assessments affect the learning process. And so I agree with Tim on that, that we want to look at STAR to see that it's accomplishing that. Because if it does, if it's just a diagnostic tool, then we have a lot of them already. And, do they do the same thing?
And again, I'm not saying it is or isn't good. In fact, I was excited when we looked at it, and I think it provides good information. But I think it becomes an important part of this entire process and all the challenges that we're all facing as we talk about the importance of assessments, in some people's mind, the overuse of assessments, the lack of time that we have within a day to fit as many assessments in as we can, about what we talked about with counselors and administrating and proctoring. So, I mean, there's a whole lot that goes around this, and I just think this board would be remiss if we didn't have a conversation about it to some extent, because it's such a huge piece of what we deal with, which also then drives to the conversation we'll get to at a later point with regard to morale and how that may or may not directly link there. And so, look, I am a big believer in assessments. I think they're incredibly valuable, and we have to be making data-driven decisions across the board. But at the same time, we need to find that balance in there. And I'm just using this as, again, that example of that point, because and I want, to your point, Mr. Booth, I want students excited about it. I don't want them to take it and go, okay, great, I took it. I want them to take it and then go, how did I do? Oh, okay, I'm doing really good. Man, I'm moving up 2 points. And how do we reward or incentivize that, or how do we get them excited about it? What's the visualization of it for them? And I know Lance's basketball game, he puts 10 points on the board, he's excited. Next time he wants to put 12 on the board because he sees the results it's generated.
As long as he's winning.
Well, this weekend's another story. So I made my point. Yeah,
So,
Mr. Wheeler?
At the high school, we do not use STAR math. We do use STAR reading for our intensive reading classes to progress monitor them. And to your point, students can actually exit intensive reading classes by showing proficiency on the STAR reading. Quite often in high school, you know how teenagers can be. They will blow off a particular assessment, and if they don't take the FSA, which was the FCAT, seriously, they could land themselves in an intensive reading class. So working with the reading teachers and those students that score high enough on that STAR, then principals are looking at them individually. So one of the things we do on reflective visits is actually ask that question: how many students exited intensive reading because they scored successfully on the STAR reading? that's a huge motivator for students. This was really our first year to do it. We were able to exit quite a few students. We don't use that piece of data in isolation, but whenever they hit the right number there, then we'll go back and look at historical data. Historically, like FCATs that have taken 6th or 7th grade, looking at data to triangulate it, and they make a recommendation that the student move out of intensive rating based on these either star data points that are triangulated together with a previous FCAT. So that's how we motivate them in high school. They take it, they know they got to take it seriously or they won't get out of there. That's
Yeah.
what we do.
And maybe the counselor conversation lends to this as well. And I don't know how those points connect. If maybe, I understand the teachers using it as a gauge, but I'm thinking kind of system-wide, does it become a tool to where counselors are a lower ratio of counselor students, counselors are using it as a gauge as well to encourage students about opportunities or what they need to do? And I don't know. To me, it just kind of, it's all part of one picture. I don't know how they all connect in the most effective way, maybe. That's your guys' job to help enlighten us on. But I like it. I love predictive information. I think it's valuable, but I want to make sure that it's getting where we need to go, and it's not a tool that's being regretted that we have. That's all.
I just got one thing, and then
It's okay.
I wanted to go to 1H for a second. You said there's a total of 103 students. In researching this document ahead of time, you had 25 juniors from each high school. That's 200 juniors. But we have 103 total in the program. That's the number you put up there today. So
Yes, sir.
if I'm saying there's 200 juniors, there's 200 seniors, that's 400 kids, but we're only got 103 participation.
Right.
I mean, is that something where some of these kids, they already know, they're like, look, we got it, we don't need your assistance. So what I'm saying is, if we're doing 500 to 1 on our guidance counselors,
Right.
let's find 500 kids or 400 kids or whatever that can benefit from this program.
And that is our target audience.
Okay.
Ricky,
Because we have a full-time person in this position.
Exactly. So,
let's-
one of the things
yeah.
that we've done this year is try to increase that footprint on the program. The number that I had, I got to get the current number of juniors. I just don't want to answer it off the cuff. But I think right now we have close to 200 juniors in the program because of the work that we've done. But the number that we're saying are the kids that are actually actively participating in the program, coming to the meetings, meeting with Gladys on either lunchtime or after school or before school time. So these are students that have committed to participating in it. We still reach out, as you know, that we reached out to every student, senior, each junior that was in an honors class or AP class this year. And again, the kids that we're saying are in the program are the ones that are actively participating with her in the program. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure she's doing a great job, and I want to see this program expand and do more, but I wouldn't, going to each high school and meeting with 12 kids doesn't warrant a full-time position. And I want it to be a full-time position. I want it to be more than a full-time position.
Right.
I want her to be so busy she can't keep up.
Right.
So
Right.
I just hope we get there on this next time.
Right. So there's 500 kids that would be a possible target audience.
Good.
Mr. Wheeler?
That was mine. Yep.
First off, are these recommendations coming from Uvalde?
Which one?
Okay, just in general, this document. Okay,
Yes,
just wanna-
yes.
okay, just wanna- okay. I was very excited coming in here when you said you made changes to it. So I went and saw the changes, I marked them all down, and I realized we don't have results from the state yet. But we should know where we are. I mean, there's other ways to know where we are. But with that said, we are where we are. We had 19 schools go down last year. I haven't seen one principal get moved out, et cetera. And with this, we want to be the best school district in the state. I'd be happy if we were the best school district in Osceola County. I want us to outperform New Dimensions High School. I talked to them today. They got 60% of their kids on free and reduced lunch, 60% minority. They got an A 5 years in a row. They're a charter school. We got charter schools that are outperforming us. So I'm not going to pick this apart piece by piece. I'm not really curious about how the watch is built. I want to know what time it is. I think that, this is all nice, but we got to get results. And, nobody likes comparative data. I mean, there's comparative data that's been provided to us before showing that we went down farther, faster than other school districts. And I haven't seen anything, you know, the house is on fire, we know it, we gotta fix this now, and we're doing it. We're moving it, we're plodding along, there's great things going on in our schools, don't get me wrong, we got amazing kids, we have amazing teachers. I think our kids can do better. I think our teachers can do better. I know they can, they've done it, I've seen it. And so I hope you'll all do better, but I think board, you know, obviously we are, you know, we're going to be going in whatever direction we're going in, and my sense of urgency is different than everybody else's, and the whole go from X to Y and we don't have our numbers in, we don't have that information, we have other information. So with that said, I mean, I've got information on how our charter schools did last year, ones with the same demographics as us, and they're outperforming us. So I just want to outperform the schools in our district. That's where I am with it. So why is New Dimensions outperforming us with 60% minority, 60% kids on free and reduced lunch? I don't know.
I do.
Why are the charter schools, USA schools, going from C to A and D to A, and our schools are going down? I don't know. They got the same demographics we've got. And so why are they going up and we're going down? I don't have an answer for that. And so the benchmark I'm going to give you, I don't have all the numbers. Let's outperform the schools in our district. That'd make me happy. That's all. I mean, I think that there's some, again, we got great kids, great things going on. I think that there needs to be a greater sense of urgency. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Clarence, I know you were working through your notes there as well. Additional points you want to add on?
K and N are kind of the same question. And I wonder, when I look at this as a strategy of narrowing the gap between the ELLs and the ESE students, I get a little concerned. I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring up the two lower tiers, but I'm not sure the gap measurement is the right strategy. You need, for one, that gap can go either direction, and I'm not sure quite what that tells me. I mean, the gap can really narrow and it not be good for either group. So I'm just wondering, as a strategy, if you guys should think about, and we don't need to beat it to death here, but if you should think about what is the strategy really trying to do to us, which I'm assuming it's really raised the ESEs and the ELL students. I'm not sure by narrowing or changing the gap is really what is really the strategy that we want, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think the outcome is still desired, but the way that we articulate getting there needs to be looked at.
Yeah. I'm not sure narrowing the gap tells you anything in of itself.
Yeah. Okay. Which one would you like to talk about, Clarence? I'm trying to find it.
And I can just leave it with y'all. That's really kind of all I needed to.
Okay, but what we need to realize is that when we're talking about, let's just talk about the learning achievement gap between ESE.
Let me do this. I apologize. I don't think at this point we need the explanation on it, to be really honest. I think he just wants you to know that we need to figure out a different way to define it.
Just
We
think
don't
about the
disagree.
Okay, but I don't know that we have calibrated an understanding so clearly on this.
Okay,
I gotta
if I
seek
misunderstand, that's
clarification
fine.
from him on this.
Okay. Yep,
Okay.
that's fine. I
So
just
I need
trying
the
to be
achievement
sensitive
gap
time
on
at the same
ESE
time.
or ELL. You just pick one, we'll have the discussion.
Yeah, you pick one.
Okay, so we're talking about.
I think they're different
one, yeah.
issues, but that's.
Okay, so when you talk about a strategy, that's something you're going to do to improve a situation. Okay, when you talk about an actual target is how you're going to measure that. Okay.
So what is our situation we're trying to improve?
Okay, the achievement gap between all students, let's say that all students are at 55% proficient, but the proficiency for ESE students is 25%. Okay, so there's a 30-point achievement gap there that is, to me, when you're talking about students with disabilities and these students that are on a general ed diploma now, we should be striving to increase the proficiency of the ESE students while continuing to bring up the proficiency of the general ed student.
And I agree with that.
Okay, but that is
Completely
closing
agree.
that achievement gap. Okay, and so as you bring up the one, all will come up too.
Unless, I guess when I look at, that gap can close by the ESE students improving
And the general ed.
faster than the general ed. And I don't think that's necessarily the outcome In other words, general ed stays right where where
55.
Plodding along.
they stay flat, the others get a little better. We just close that gap, but I don't
Okay.
think that's the outcome any of us are really looking for.
Okay, let's talk about that then. When you're talking about, you look at a group of students in class.
I know how passionate.
Okay.
I'm not mad at you.
And
No,
it's,
no, no,
and
I
it's
want-
really great.
But I want him to realize that no student in that class will learn to his or her best ability until all students are learning to his or her best ability, okay? So when we're talking about this, to me, it's unacceptable for you to have a 20 or 30% achievement gap. And of course, we want to bring up all, but by bringing up these subgroups together, they will all come up. Not just looking or focusing on one area, but I just don't think a 30% achievement gap for a student who's got to graduate with their standard diploma.
And Clarence agrees with you there.
Okay. So I don't want all to go down or stay stagnant.
But I think we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
We can talk about it later, Clarence, is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Wheeler?
I get
Why,
both sides.
why is New Dimensions outperforming?
Oh,
How many-
Jay, can we talk
Yeah.
about
Let me
that
just-
later?
okay, let's-
Jay, it's
what-
really, no, don't go there, because there are things that we would not want to discuss in public, Jay. This is not an
we wanna-
appropriate place. Jay, really,
We're
this
talking
is
about
not an-
student achievement.
Can you help me out here, because this is
I don't know,
not
I'm
an
trying to,
appropriate place to
explain to
have
me
this
why it's
conversation.
inappropriate to talk about that.
Is it possible to discuss this? And let me tell you why. The thing is that he's gonna have this conversation. I know that you'll be able to satisfy him.
Or the other charter schools, why are they outperforming
But if
us?
you, rather than have like 5 individual conversations, the only way that we can discuss this between ourselves within the confines of the rules is by having these. Sometimes they may be uncomfortable. Is there a way to having it without, you know?
So the charter
So
schools
that-
are outperforming us, we don't want to talk about it.
I mean, I know that
You
I
said
know Jay's
New
invocation is not
Dimensions.
constructive right
It is
now.
not
New Creek,
it is
Four
not appropriate,
Corners,
in my opinion,
PM
to talk about
Wells,
one
Renaissance-
particular
okay, let's
school.
talk about 5 of them.
And Jay, we will never be able, how about if you allow us to finish this and then move on to that at the very end?
I think the important part of this is going to be that if you want to have that conversation, it has to be based upon empirical data, not.
Okay, here, it's right
No,
here.
no, I don't need
Wait,
your
but
notes.
before we get to that point.
But
It's-
it needs to be based upon empirical data where there's an opportunity for the staff to truly look at all comparisons across the
Right
board.
here.
Jay, I don't want your
You know, Jay,
information
but
right now.
listen-
I'm trying to
Okay.
Yeah,
move
yes,
us through
put
this
it-
conversation in
Sure.
an effective manner. I have no problem coming back to that and having a conversation about where the best practices or where the successes within any one of these schools or other districts around the county, and why are we not matching up on that regard. But I think it has to be a one-for-one conversation. And in fairness, I mean, that's not what we came here to compare directly to that, to do, and I would argue that they're probably not prepared to argue that point right
I'm
now,
not even arguing, I'm looking for an explanation.
or explain that point right now. That's good clarification.
Thank you.
But but to Mr. Wheeler's point, I mean,
It's
they
relevant.
want to hear it, and
It's
it's important for them to
relevant.
hear it. So
Well, and
we're
we
going
can-
to have to data mine that and figure out what the differences are. I know, April, you alluded to, you understand the rationale, the reasoning as well. So I think it's important the board understand it. There's board members that feel like it's important, and so we can't just move past it. Right now, obviously, isn't the time, but I think we're going to have to address it.
Yeah, right now is not the time.
And what I
We
meant to
can-
say is
That
that
your point?
even with, and I agree with Tim, but this is the thing, it's from these uncomfortable conversations that we can, just like you have the reflective visits and you get value out of that, think of that as the reflective visit you have with the board.
Which we have
And-
data for.
And,
that's
exactly.
what, and we
And
really.
so, maybe right now is not the time that you're prepared to really give us good information, which is what you want to do.
Mhm.
But, you know, we can't say that this is a discussion that's only going to happen with one individual
And if
And-
I put it on an agenda, it would be with every single one of you,
at the same time.
if that's what you'd like.
Well,
I
we
think
can-
we
we
just do
can-
it in an open meeting,
Yeah,
yes.
we can.
Yeah, we could do
can-
that.
I'm fine, and if you guys fine,
Yeah.
I think we
I think
revisit it
it's
and
an
have a
opportunity.
conversation where we look at all of it and compare the whole.
I
think
think
You
it's-
learn.
I think
and
it's fine.
invite them in to just, so they can hear, invite those charter schools in to hear it, so if they've got something that they think is inaccurate, they can dispute it.
I think to Mr. Wheeler's point, though, the key point is that the whole idea behind that is that it drives competition and innovation. And so if they are quote unquote one of our competitors, we do need to understand what they're doing and where they're succeeding and how we can learn from it. So it's not an invalid point in that regard at all.
Right.
So,
And there are kids.
sure. Okay.
I have one more in goal one.
No, you're
Okay.
good. You're good. No, you're doing good because you're
really well,
helping
thank
spur
you.
the conversation for all of us.
We'll get your twos too.
1R is the district will continue to strengthen professional learning communities. I'm just wondering if we should add a strategy to this. Careful when you send me to training, because I might listen and remember something, but I hear there's very direct, and Michael Lakes and I had this conversation, very direct correlation on a teacher in a classroom and student achievement. And I hear constantly about teachers being taken out of the classrooms for in-servicing. Should one of these strategies be to do these learning communities and this training and this in-service stuff with as minimal classroom removal as possible? Do it in the summers, do it Saturday. Instead of paying a substitute, pay them to come on. I don't know if we can do that legally.
I think we have this in.
But I'm wondering if that should really, if there is really that correlation of having the teacher in the classroom with the kids, any minute we take them away from being in front of kids is a moment lost. So I just.
Yeah, I want to add real quick to his too before you comment on that, because I've dealt with this situation at my child's school, and I know it happens because I've heard about it. The advocate meetings sometimes coming down, teachers getting pulled out of classroom for 4 and 5 hours at a time for advocate meetings.
What is that? I don't know.
What is an
Yeah.
advocate?
Advocate, where if you have an ESE student and the parents have some sort of problem, then they bring the advocate in, and you come. I mean, it actually happened specifically to my daughter, where her teacher was gone 2 or 2.5 days from the rest of her whole class for meetings about one student.
2 days is 1% of a school year.
So parents are using teachers as advocate? I thought that the rule, that's the rule. Okay.
I just wanted to add that to
Parents bring it in.
Clarence's
Parents, I'm
thing,
sorry.
because I think it fits
I'm confused
into the
with
whole
so
thing. And
parents are
I've heard
bringing
this
teachers as
happen
the advocate on the
numerous times
Parents are bringing an
across
advocate,
the
the teachers
district.
there to also speak to what's taking place with the student.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're taking away from administrators and all the other people to handle these situations. And I'm sure legally we have to, but let's maybe figure out another way. And just kind of
Well,
add
I guess
that
that's
in.
what I was the strategy of
Extremely
keeping
valid point.
teachers in the
Yeah.
classroom.
I just wanted to add that in because I knew it ties into
Maybe it's not the right
pulling
spot, but that's
teachers
what I
out of the
thought.
classroom.
I see merit in the strategy, okay, and I think, we have made some efforts this
Yes.
year to try to lessen the amount of days that the teachers are out. Certainly, I think we can go back and take a look and see if there's a place to put that in. Actually, on 1RA, it's a 2-day hybrid training, the one I mentioned there, is during the summer. That's August 3rd and 4th. I failed to mention that it's a summer training. But I'll take a look around in goal 1 to see if we can include the strategy somewhere. I'm not sure it belongs in that focus area, but somewhere I think it's worthy of.
And if my recollection of these things are wrong too, it's fine. So
It's one of the things that we've done
Okay.
at the high school, because we felt, we heard exactly what you were saying on the deal with professional development. At the high school, we've really tried to, if there's any way possible, we do it in the afternoon on our Saturday. It's only by exception do I schedule a PD during the day because of that very reason. I felt like, hearing from the principals and the teachers that they were just, it was just too much going on during the school day. So we've tried to do that. Is there an exception? Sometimes there is. But, yes, sir, we responded to that one.
And that was at the very beginning of the year. You're absolutely correct. We were pulling teachers out. We received a lot of
We've heard it a lot in
complaints.
here.
Yes.
We had a lot of complaints
Yes.
from
Sure,
teachers,
sure,
and
sure.
and so we started making that adjustment November, December.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This
we're
is an
doing our
important
thing.
conversation. There's an extreme balance in this, right?
Right.
So one side of it is that we fully value and recognize that professional development is a vital point of us being to be able to accomplish the other legs of this strategic plan. The other part of it is that we recognize that having the teacher in the classroom as much as possible is vitally important to the student's success. But then the other component becomes is that we're limited on the budget constraints we have about how much money we can spend and the contract components we have to deal with to make sure that teachers aren't being asked to do things after their contract hours. And so this is a huge piece, because in order for us to be, innovative and to drive professional development, which is ultimately going to help in theory and I think in practice drive instruction, which is going to improve student learning gains, we have to figure out how to weave this tapestry. And I know you guys are doing the best you can with that, but that's huge. I think here's something that would help me is extremes are what they are. and it's not that I discount them completely, but they're extremes. I care more about the norm, right? So, you know, an instance like that where you say, you know, if someone was pulled out for 2 days, I mean, I don't like that at all, but I don't know if it's accurate or not, but that, I have to assume that not your point. But that
I don't
is
know how many
accurate
times
that
it happens, but I
across
think
the
it
board,
happens
right?
too much.
Yeah, well, it may. It may.
I just
And-
wanted to add that in. I
it
didn't say
may-
we had to just dwell on it. I just wanted to add.
No, I'm just using it as an example because I think what's important is, Mr. Thacker, I think we would all agree that your point is something that we would all, probably everyone around the table would share, is that we don't want people out of the classroom for whatever reason.
Especially if
But-
we're gonna pay somebody to go there and sit in the classroom while they're out doing
Yeah,
some.
to not even potentially do as good a job as the one that could have
Right.
been there.
Rather pay them- pay
So
the
I think,
professional.
I think for the board's benefit, you know, we hear about these things and we hear about, you know, whatever the extreme might be, it might be good to know what the real norm is. You know, how often are teachers really pulled out? You know, how much assessment and testing really is impacting the school day. I mean, these type of things, because what happens is that, you know, we will hear from 15 people in a board meeting that say, you know, we're not happy, this is what's going on. But then I'll hear from 30 people that'll say, you know, no, everything's okay. And look, I understand I have to do professional development. I have to do this. And in order for us to make wise decisions, we kind of have to know what the across the board level feel is. But I think all that supports all the points that are being made is, you know, whatever we need to do to make sure that we're keeping people in the classroom where it is that they're certified and where it is that we've placed them, where it is that we need them is still vitally important.
That's what I said, I'm happy to be told I'm misinformed.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think I mean, we were hurting ourselves
Yes.
on that one.
You're accurate.
And, like I said, my way of, the norm in high school is going to be after school or Saturdays. And it's only gonna be the exception that it would be done during the day. And my philosophy is that if it's good enough professional development, they will come in the afternoon or Saturday. We'll pay them a stipend. The only exception to that would be if we needed to do modeling during the school day. And we've done some of that. But you can't really do that after school or Saturday. So that's been, we've heard it. We were, I guess as Kelvin said, that was part of our reflective process. Whenever somebody started bringing that up, we said, hey, are we causing ourselves more damage here than good? So completely understand it. I think it was a valid point. We responded to it.
And I think it goes without saying, and at least from where I sit, is I know you guys are doing the best that you can, or you know how to try to balance all of these pieces. And you've got a board, previous and current, saying this is what we want to accomplish. You're trying to make it happen. You're making the best decisions. I have to assume that you can. And by no means am I in any way implying that you guys don't share the exact same viewpoint of what we share, or what the exact same result. And unfortunately for you, you're left with the implementation of what it is that our ideas are of what we want to see happen. So that's not lost on me. I want to make sure you guys know that.
I'm not being critical.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. We're all trying to figure out how to do the best we can. So,
Point we'll take, Claire. Thanks for bringing it up. We responded to that.
okay. Ms. Thacker, anything additional?
I'm double one.
Okay.
How many pages does that get?
What?
Mr. Booth, did you have anything additional?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, did you have anything
I'd
additional?
like to get that meeting scheduled with the charter schools and hear a bit why Mrs. Louisiana can't compete with them.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Are you good? The other thing I was going to ask is, I know we covered core connections and math solutions in this aspect of the goal. What is a 3-year contract on those, or what, do you know?
The core connections for the
Going
math,
on
math
to-
solutions.
Really, it's
and-
peppered all
and
throughout.
writing.
They're year by year,
Year.
year by year. Are they doing well
Don't we
for
have
us?
3-year for the
Well,
math
the
solutions?
intent, the initial intent with Math Solutions was that it would be a 3-year implementation. So the roadmap initially was laid out for 3 years, so we're in year 3 right now. Core Connections is annual. And the training changed completely this year because of the new reading and writing requirements.
And again, I'm just picking these because they're in here specifically
Yes.
stated, and again, I know that we have to find the tools that we think are really going to be the most effective to drive instruction. And I've also shared that, you know, going with the program and then going, oh, we don't like it, now going with another one is just as dangerous, you know, so I mean, I get that. I think the big thing is that this board's making a significant investment in those pieces, and then I'm just looking for, and I don't need it today, but I'm just looking for a confidence level from you guys that these are the right tools and strategies for us to be using to help get where we're going. And I recognize Math Solutions 3rd year, Core Connections year over year, whatever it is. I am by no means implying we change course. I'm just saying, is this the right thing? Is it really working? Is there something else that we should be doing? Is this helping or hurting, or is it benign? Is it doing none of the above? And I just want to know that because it is a significant investment and we're relying upon it quite heavily.
I actually have one more real quick one, Tim, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. No, please.
It's 1Q. It's about the virtual school and the blended learning opportunities. I have reports of folks utilizing this, and especially our media specialists being pulled in, where we have someone who comes in for a virtual class. They want to do it at school, so then we're dumping them basically in the media center, and we're adding that on to the media specialist who's already busy doing their other stuff. And now we've got a basically kind of sort of, I don't, babysitting service is probably too strong of a term, but what's our policy on how we blend someone who wants to do part-time in-school, part-time virtual school?
There's no one way that it's done. There are students that go to the media center.
Do we need a policy? Or should we just?
I don't personally see a one policy working. I think it needs to be a school-by-school decision. And then if there are issues at the individual schools, I would, hope that those issues can be
And I'm not
worked
speaking
out
to one
from
specific
the-
school. I'm talking about a good amount of schools.
So the majority of our blended students are actually in labs, and the large part of them take place in the high schools. So instead of students reporting to, let's say, a fifth period class, then they'll go to the lab. They go on and do their virtual work, and there's adult supervision there, but it's not a teacher of record, because the teacher of record is the Osceola virtual school teacher.
That's I guess that's to my point, is who is ultimately responsible for these children. If you say a parent brings them in for one class, say it's a homeschooler kid, and then we bring them in for one virtual class, we put them in the library or something like that.
Well,
how do we?
Ricky, it would vary from school to school. I would hope
Yeah.
that's the exception and not the norm. But like Michelle
Okay.
is referring to, we do have computer labs set up where a student that's at the traditional school and does need to take a virtual school, they, ideally they would be in a computer lab with either a teacher or para, depending on what kind of a course they would be doing for that supervision purposes. Now, I will tell you, because the online credit requirement, there's been some high schools and high school students that have had really a hard time meeting that requirement. That's a new graduation requirement for this year, for this year's seniors. So that could have been, again, that pendulum swung way too far. But if you do have those cases and y'all hear about them, and there's a concern from a media specialist, don't hesitate to let me know.
And it's not just that; it's who is in charge.
Right.
If a child just gets dropped off for an hour to do who's in charge? Who's responsible for this child? And are we planning around one child coming into one lab or one area? I just I want to make
Right.
sure.
Someone's taking two teachers.
Correct.
Well, what we're trying to do is, in a lot of the high schools where we have a computer lab, there could be some paras supervising, just making sure that the students are in there taking roll. A lot of time it's going to be, which in a Plato lab, it would be a certified teacher in there. So it just depends on the actual lab, but if you feel like there's some
I'm not
media
aware of a
specialists
lot
being
of
taken
situations.
advantage
No,
of.
that's fine. And if it's not a big problem, then
I can
But
tell
we
you
would
also,
love
when
to
I
know
was
that.
principal, I utilized Osceola Virtual quite a bit, and we're talking 4 or 5 years ago even. And so I might have an 8th grader at the time. We didn't have the accelerated pathways that we have now, where there are geometry classes being offered. So the top kids, sometimes I would work with my Algebra 1 teacher. They would sit to the side, do their work, and then when there was sufficient time, the teacher would go and check on them, where the kids would stay after class.
Okay.
But I agree with you; those situations need to be worked out well ahead of time.
sure. I just want to make sure who's in charge. That's what the supervision factor.
Right.
That's it.
I have a question on virtual. Mr. Allen, this goes back to the meeting that you helped put together for me with regard to virtual education. And board, I don't think I've mentioned it to any of you in our meeting since I had that meeting, is expanding the use and access to virtual education. And I'm just to say it this way, I don't know if it's the right solution or not, but we have capacity issues in the district that we're trying to figure out how to fill. We have gorgeous campuses all over the district, and I'll use this as the example. What if we had a school set up where we almost could have, and I'm not talking double sessions per se in this regard, but I know, but online education is more and more prevalent. It's going to continue to be from a societal standpoint. And the quicker that we can kind of understand that and utilize that, I think the better off we are and ultimately our students are. And most of their education, once they leave the traditional brick and mortar K-12 system, a lot of it is and is going to continue to be happening online. And that continues into professional development work that I do and the rest of us probably do on a regular basis. Point being is, what about exploring the idea of saying we have a high school campus where the student body comes in the morning and they take traditional classes, whatever those may be, and then they take virtual classes in the afternoon so that there's not as much of intensity on the campus, and then you almost do a rotation of that to where the morning, the other, I'll use 2,000 as a number, 2,000 students come in, traditional brick and mortar setting, they take the traditional classes in the morning, in the afternoon they finish out the rest of their coursework online.
At home or at school?
Well, school we'd still have capacity issues,
Right.
but that's just a thought. And then you reverse that. I'm proposing it for two reasons. Just for one, I want to hear the board's thought on it, just from an innovation perspective. I'm not saying that we convert one of our existing campuses for that or whatever, but if that solves some of our need for actual student station space, if it hits the idea of increasing the access to virtual education for students, if it provides an opportunity for us to be innovative and bringing relevant education to our student body, is it a magnet program? Is it something? It's not going to be for everybody. We recognize that, but is it an innovative solution that we should be talking about or considering that both hits an educational component and hits a capital and infrastructure component that solves maybe a need and is exciting? You know, the kid that says, look, I have no problem. I need a teacher. I need a traditional classroom setting to learn these, you know, things, math, reading, science, whatever it might be. But you know what? I want to take the rest of this stuff online, and that excites me. And I don't want to have to sit here. And you know what? I want to leave school at noon, like we used to do with OJT type stuff. I want to leave at noon and go work and then finish up my coursework virtually. I mean, that's kind of the idea. So
I think on paper it's great. The issue that I've got with, I mean, you even said it's not for everybody, which I appreciate, but we're talking about children. We're not talking about you or me. We're talking about children. Children, in my opinion, for the most part, very few kids have got that kind of self-discipline and motivation to oversee themselves. Let's go into the premise they're going home and their mom and dad aren't home also. So they're going home and we expect them to do school stuff and work and not be distracted by everything else that can distract them. I think it's a great idea, and I think for some kids it'll work really well. I think for the vast majority, you're talking kids, 14, 15, 16, 17. I mean, there's a number of those kids who don't even remember to brush their teeth, let alone have the self-discipline to be able to go home and, do the work, be on task, get it done within a timely manner. Now, there are exceptions to everything. And I think that for, a kid who maybe really wants to make some money, has a job, or is just maybe can move forward faster on their own, recognizes they can do more on their own faster, and is that kind of motivated self-starter, it'll work real well for. But I think the vast majority of kids, they need the discipline, structure, and a place to go, because very few kids, and a lot of kids will say they can do it, but they're well intended. I don't think that everybody's going to say they're going to do it and then intentionally not doing it, but these are kids, and kids I don't think really inherently have the maturity and self-discipline to do it on a large scale. To your point, there are exceptions. There are some kids who, you can give them anything, they'll do well.
Jay, you made your point 4 times. Now.
Good. Glad you're paying attention.
I'm sorry, I had to say that. But I agree with his point. Tim, that's very, I don't have to do it just once. This is the thing, though. I believe that Tim is onto something here. And why wait till 2017 or 2018 to think about the issues that we have to confront, given the trends of capital funding that we have? And what Tim is saying, the way I'm going to interpret it is, now is the time. Because when you were talking, I was thinking about our last rezoning board meeting. Remember that? when we were rezoning St. Cloud.
I was looking at Booth, he remembers.
And we were rezoning St. Cloud, and this is the thing. You know, right now, we have a process that we're doing over and over again that works in terms of dealing with this. And I think that the board, in some ways, they were kind of like saying, do we start thinking a little bit about alternative solutions, given the state of, you know, of money that we have coming in for capital need? And so, while they may not be, I agree with Jay, I don't think that this is the preferred or this is favored. We have to put this on the table, and we have to start thinking about it now, because we want to have some, if this is the way that we're going to go, it is a legitimate way of meeting these needs.
There's one point, and you're right, there's one point though I want to make. When we started, and I'll allude to it this way, when we started the IB program at Celebration High School, we let almost any kid be in the IB program. And we found out that didn't work. There were kids who were there because their parents wanted them in it, so they weren't doing anything, or they didn't have the requisite math and they weren't doing well. So now we've learned from that, and we've got, you know, we've got prerequisites, and there's a certain type of kid we look for. I think this would be good, and I realize it's uncharted territory, but I think we need to have the same thing. We need to be talking with the parents and talking with the student and talk to the students, middle school teachers also. Is this a kid that you really think can self-teach, can keep up on a pace on their own, and is self-disciplined? Because we don't want to let
Jay, that may be the reality.
Let me finish. We don't want to we want kids to be successful. We don't want to put kids in here that maybe aren't predisposed to the discipline needed and they're not successful, which is not to say you don't want to give them a chance, but you want to know what you're dealing with versus opening it up to the whole wide world, because these are kids. So I'm all for it, but I think we need to have some gate, some sort of a benchmark, some sort of a gate to get through, where they can't just sign themselves up. Then all of a sudden we got this many doing well, this many aren't. I think that, again, we're talking about kids. We're not talking about 25-year-olds.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
Good.
I stepped out for a minute, but you were still on the same topic, are you, Ron?
Yeah, we moved St. Cloud kids
I don't
again.
know.
Please, no.
Rezone.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, just so you guys know, part of this process and strategic planning is us thinking outside of the box.
Certainly.
And being innovative and saying, what do we need to do, not just this year, but laying groundwork for future opportunities. And the problem is that if we don't have these conversations now,
correct,
and we go too far down the road, then what happens is we're not laying any groundwork for what may be able to happen. I'm not saying that we do this in August. I'm just saying that I'm just saying that we need to start to have conversations, and this may not be the right solution, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But part of our job is to lay those ideas on the table and to say, what about this? Why aren't we thinking about it? You know, Florida is supposedly recognized as a leader in virtual education nationwide. If that is indeed the case, and we currently have it, and we have capacity needs, and virtual education works for some and not all, and I agree 100% with that. If more and more students are taking hybrid classes when they get to college anyway, should we not start that conversation today of whether or not this is or isn't something for us to consider? Is it the next magnet school in Osceola County? Is it the next hook that we want to put in place that says it meets a number of needs and helps drive innovative education in this community? And I think that there's a lot of parents and a lot of students that would like it and would think it's really good for their kid. So it's definitely not right for all, and I acknowledge that.
I don't know how much that some of that's already taking place now. I know kids that never step on the high school campuses all day long.
Right.
I would like to be able to talk to Dr. Reynolds and Mr. Allen about it, because I think it may be just more affirming what that student's student experience would look like. But she's really got that program rocking and rolling. I'd like to go back, and I think you're going to see there's more of that going on than what we think there is. But it could be more of a firmer, this is what your student experience could look like as we move forward. Because we have kids that never step on the high school campuses now.
Right. No, and I acknowledge that. I had a pretty long and robust conversation surrounding what's happening with virtual education in Osceola County before I even brought this up. To me, it almost in some ways comes back to the conversation about the pathway to dual enrollment. We've got a great dual enrollment program, some great partnerships that are taking place, but is it really prescribed and branded and promoted?
Gotcha.
And again, maybe the first iteration of it's like the Business Academy St. Cloud. The first iteration is an incubation program, and the second iteration maybe becomes something else, and the third iteration is now that we have a full-blown campus in Osceola County that is a business high school purely and solely, and that's where kids from all over this community are going to. This just might be one of those things that we need to begin to explore of taking out of the way we're doing it now and setting it aside and saying this is right for some, not right for all, and you still have a home high school, home middle school, whatever it might be, that you are still a koala or a cowboy or a bulldog or whatever it is. But this is the path that you think is best for your student.
We're the koalas.
Yeah, that was my
We're the
question. You're the
koalas.
koala.
We
Koa.
have
Koa, okay.
Koa koalas. Come on, man.
I did not know
Oh,
that.
okay.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my goodness. My point was across the spectrum, elementary to high
You,
school.
you just said koalas, and that threw me off.
Well, I have kangaroo.
It's not a high school, that's what.
Well, I
Yeah.
used
Yeah,
that
you don't know
intentionally
the
to show
exactly.
elementary to high
Thank
school.
you.
And I threw bulldog in for you. Trust
Oh, I
me,
got
wanted to
the
stop at
bulldog
cowboy.
part. I saw the cowboy
Believe me, I
part.
wanted to stop at cowboy. The other thing I'll just point out, and board, I've got to head out for another meeting, is with the STEM expansion, and Lizette, you hit on this from from 4 to 9 instead of 4 to 8, and adding on Neptune Elementary. Melvin, my question is, does the expansion and the breadth of this program and where we're going with it align with what our goals and our desires were with regard to the partnership with the county and expanding and shortening the timeline for implementation of
Yes.
STEM countywide?
Yes, as a matter of fact, this goes hand in hand with the plan that we've originally started.
And are we still on track to meet what it is that we had set in place, what we had talked about doing by them partnering with us on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's an important piece, not
And
only
we will
for
bring it in with-
implementation, but for integrity purposes as well. Okay, all right. Let me just say this, I have to head out. I didn't know that we were planning to go more than 2 hours, and maybe the conversation just took longer than any of us planned. If you, no, Clarence, you were great, you were great. If you guys want to continue, Mr. Soto can continue the meeting if his schedule permits. I have to step out, otherwise I'd be glad. Listen, I have no problem meeting as frequent as we need to have these conversations and walk through the rest of it. So it's your, whatever the board's desire is. We can either adjourn and hit these other points at another later date, or you guys can keep going and I'll just step out.
I like having us all here, but we'll just
I'm
leave you
available.
guys.
Well,
You're available now?
I'm available now, but
Okay.
I got about another 45 minutes.
45.
Yeah, I mean, I could stay for another hour if I had to.
Okay, so you guys continue on then, and then I'll pick up where I need to, and
we
Mr.
take a
Soto, if
5
you'll
minute
continue the
break?
meeting.
yes, that'd be fine. We'll take 5 minutes, because actually the other ones usually go much faster than these.
Okay. Well, let me do this thing. Clarence, give me 2 seconds. Here's, I'll just throw this since you guys are gonna move through. Big thing I wanted to hit on, and hearing, when we get to goal 4 in cultivating the environment and all that, I'd like us to have some specific things in board. We've talked about being innovative and finding additional revenue sources and figuring out what we can do so that people understand how much we genuinely value them as employees all the way across the board, whether it's support staff or otherwise. Getting honest feedback from people with regard to how they feel. Just so you know, I'm not one that thinks that, you know, everyone's walking around going, woe is me in this county. I really don't think that's the case. I think that we're all trying to figure out how to navigate and manage the many challenges that as a school district or as a public education system, nation and statewide, we're all working through. But I would like, and you guys can go with however you see on this, I'd like to see some specific strategies on what the board would like to see going forward to try to find additional revenue sources that will help provide additional bonus opportunities or income opportunities for our employees, for how do we work to make sure there are some intangibles that we can consider as well about making sure that they understand that, look, in the confines of these limited budget times that we live in and coming out of the worst recession in 60 years, how do we create intangible benefits that go along with that as well? But at the same time, the other side of that coin and the balance has to be, how do we still make sure that we're having accountability and quality instruction and student performance and the results that we've been talking about. So that was kind of going to be my key point on that. The last thing would be is when we get to the finance piece, you guys know that my opinion is we need to be looking at a complete balanced budget without dipping into reserves.
Or raise taxes.
What?
We'll raise taxes, right?
No, absolutely not. You know,
Better
we-
watch
we-
out where
we-
you're going.
We can't, we can't keep taking from our capital programs to feed our operating budget.
I'll
I mean,
send
we're,
you two.
you know, those type of pieces, that becomes an important part of this conversation as well. We've got capital concerns, we're pulling money from the capital fund over into the operating fund. We just need to have that conversation, and this is the first time this board is sitting down to do that, so those are just kind of some of the key points. I think you guys all know how I feel, though. So, good? Okay, so we'll take a recess, and then Mr. Soto will reconvene the meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler, I didn't hear back from you on the kindergarten email I sent.
2H.
2H.
Okay.
Yes, sir. For the number of schools that are using ebooks right now, so staff is actually, as we speak, working on that. What I do have for you is the fact that we've got 2 major companies that we work with. Follett is one of them, and Macon Via is the second one. So because they offer through multiple sources, we will be able to have for you a breakdown by school, a number of ebooks that are used at each school, and then I can give you a calculated number for what that 10% growth will be. And then on 2J, I did go in and add in there the schools that are going to be part of the MyOn Reader, the first rollout, which is Eastlake Elementary, Hickory Tree Elementary, Michigan Avenue, and Narcoossee Community Elementary.
And why were those schools chosen versus other schools?
I believe that those were chosen in collaboration with our elementary education department, and I cannot tell you the criteria that was
Because
used
they're
for
all in
selecting
District
them.
5.
Ricky's good looking, that's all.
I can research that and get back to you.
I had nothing to do with it, just.
That was
You know,
a
just
good
saying this is already incriminating you.
And then
Because those are great elementary schools, take care of them.
I'm gonna keep you guys on track. I've added one more on here. The last one that I've added is, and I'm not sure because of the numbers that came out. It came out O, and it really shouldn't be. It should be P, but I think I might have messed things up. I have to go
Okay.
back and fix them. What I did though in general is, as a result of working with our parent cadre group, they asked for a more consistent method of communicating with parents above and beyond what we are already doing with our new app system and website. And the one program that we use in many of our schools is Remind 101, but it's not being used and applied consistently. So I've written a goal in there that will allow us to go back and kind of revive some of that with new schools, using the lessons learned from schools that are utilizing it very well to communicate push notifications to parents.
I got a question, and then you say push notifications. Is that for the schools, or is that within the schools? Different teachers might use it, or coaches might use it, et cetera?
Remind 101 can be used at all of the levels that you just mentioned, but the request came specifically to parents.
Okay, I will say this for everybody here, I'm glad Dr. Akes is still here. Our coaches, high school coaches, now not all, some are really, they all could use a refresher on how to communicate on a regular basis with parents. Which, and I'm not suggesting it needs to be, you know, anything flowery, but they just need to realize that they are running a program, they're not just a coach.
Are there questions, comments? What is your feedback from goal to comments?
We'll just start over from Clarence.
What was O and P?
P is
Because the P is the explore the development of new exit survey instrument with employee retention.
Correct.
And then P
And
is,
then P would be the
P is
Remind 101.
supposed to be that.
Right. I just put it
Gotcha.
in the wrong place. I didn't see that it carried over into another page.
Gotcha.
Now, where's the goal here regarding report cards and accuracy and timeliness of it? Which one?
There is no goal that specifically addresses the time.
I think we need to have a goal that report cards are gonna go out on time, accurately, every time going
they
forward.
went out on time and accurately the last time.
Good, let's make that a habit.
Well, then I don't know if we need to include that
Yeah, I don't know if
as
that's,
a,
yeah, I don't know if that fits, that's like something that's a little different.
I don't think it's straight, it's.
Right, it's not a
Expectation.
I think that's an issue.
Expectation.
That's, yeah, that's a, the only thing I have then is on the old O, which is explore the development of a new exit survey. Hey, look, I know the value of these, of, Tammy, please, thank you. I know the value of surveys when they're properly, when the questions are properly formulated and when they're properly, you know, implemented. The only thing, I mean, it says here is a new exit survey. We have surveys that are not exit. Is there a plan to do anything?
We do have a survey that we utilize right now, and we would have to report that data to the State Department. The State Department no longer requires us to report the data. So we've been using the instrument that we used before to collect that data. So, and it's very basic to me. And I think we could look at different things to collect to hopefully get a better idea on why we have staff leaving us.
Now, isn't there a survey that is done by the Federal Department of Education? That is done by the, I think it's the federal.
Florida or federal?
Federal. that they do, I don't know how often, I don't know if it's every several years, that specifically addresses a lot of things dealing with teacher issues. And let me tell you, I remember seeing it actually in my hand. It's a bubble in the sheet, pink and white one. That's about. Was it you that gave it to me a long time ago? Is that the one? Is that given by the federal government?
Given by NEA, National Education Association.
Was that the NEA? Okay. You know, I actually thought that was back then. I haven't corrected my head about that. Okay. So there is a survey that's been validated. Very good survey. Is there any plan or any idea what would be adverse to using that survey for you to go ahead and maybe give it once every few years and find out what's going on, you know, and help you?
Well, I'm not aware of that survey, but I'm more than
No.
happy to,
We-
well, that's a part of exploring.
It's basically a school survey to determine the climate of that particular school or
what they're talking about.
department.
Okay, sorry.
This one, I believe, Tammy, is this for the
Exit.
exit? It's only, the one that
Right.
she's referring to is only the exit, because sometimes when people are leaving, we don't necessarily know why they're leaving. And if we ask the right questions, then we might be able to get the data that we need to help us.
No, I see that is a new, and I'm trying to go a little bit further than this.
Because
This
we
is-
do have also other school climate surveys that are given.
That's what I was asking
Okay,
about.
so we do have those already. Angela, we have.
If we're
Yeah.
interested in it, and the Teachers Association is interested in it, why can't it be a part of the contract for like a withhold of a portion of a final payment? If you're interested in it, we're interested in it. No?
No, and April, please, you can go ahead and chime in. This is
Here's
one
what we
that.
do is, I always share the results with Melba. We do ours mid-year. So it identifies any issues that may be happening, and I provide her the information so that if there are problems at a school, she can investigate them fully before the end of the school year and try and make improvements. We do ours annually in December.
But I was talking about the exit interview.
The exit interview,
Totally different interviews.
Yeah, that's
Totally different.
questions.
There's
two different
Yeah.
things going on.
Two
Yeah,
very
yeah,
Two different
yeah.
things going on.
Right,
Yeah.
there's two.
Okay.
This is for climate, and this is for the purpose of trying to improve our retention rate of
Yep,
teachers.
yep.
If we know why they're leaving,
that's what
we
I-
can attack some of those issues.
A survey is nice, but where we have issues, teachers leaving, and I don't know if we have other employment sectors where we have issues, I know we can't find bus drivers. I'm not sure why we don't make an effort, and they don't take that long to do live interviews with those people, at least for a while, until we get our hands wrapped around what's going on. And I know you're probably tight on staff, but doesn't have to be, a live interview does not have to be face-to-face, it could be on the phone. But spend the 10, 15 minutes with, get your 5 questions, whatever it is, I don't care if they're the same questions on the survey, where you give somebody a chance to really say, I hate this school district, I'm out of here, or say, you know what? My mom's sick in Mississippi and I need to go home and take care of her. Where it's got, I loved it here, whatever. And I don't know by giving a standard survey if you really collect that or not. But HR then should be able to start developing, when you hear the same thing once, who cares? When you hear it 19 times in a row, might not
Doesn't
need
your
to do that.
principals do that?
Well, the thing is, you will hear things that maybe they may not feel comfortable sharing with their principal.
Yeah, to me, it should be HR,
Right.
it should not be,
And that used to take place years and years ago, probably back in the early 90s. They would come to HR, they would do an exit, and they would get their paycheck at
We
the
were
time.
also a lot smaller.
Yes, and we were very small. But to let you know, I personally read every single letter, the resignation letter that is put forth to our human
I
resource
still do,
department.
anything that's,
So,
a live conversation
yes.
to me yields, gives you a chance when you hear a tone to ask a question. Or you hear something and say, what are you really saying here? And I can tell you, just me personally, I would be more apt to tell you something verbally than fill out a form that can be on the internet and spread all over wherever I'm going to work next. Because if I tell you something and I think it's in confidence with you, and you say you said it, I said it.
Also just be inclined to actually answer the question, I mean.
Right.
well, another
just-
problem too is that we do work for the school district, and I do have people that say, I need to tell you something that's confidential, and I want it to remain in this room.
Right.
But there are special words that they say that we
No,
cannot keep it
and I'm not
confidential.
saying if somebody says I'm leaving
So-
because there's stuff going on in the
Right,
room next door.
right.
That's- I'm not talking about illegal
Right,
things. I'm
right.
talking about more generic sort of things as, the next 19 teachers that leave here all say I left because of my pay. Well, that's, or the next 19 say I left because my mother's sick in Mississippi. That tells us two different.
Got a lot of teachers from
They'll
Mississippi.
hire people from Mississippi, right?
Yeah, that's right, doesn't hire people from Mississippi. But I don't know, I just feel pretty strongly that people, if
Well,
it's
and-
verbal, will say
No,
and
that's-
do things and treat it differently, because one, they feel like somebody other than me is taking the time.
Right.
You know, it's not just they have to open their inbox and get just a thought, I don't. I
But
think-
another thing too is, we live in a totally different society than we used to live in. And people really do not have a problem, from what I can see with social media, where they feel comfortable blasting whoever they want to blast.
I would say that's age dependent. A
Yes.
30-year, a 20-year-old teacher, 25-year-old teacher
Yeah.
leaving may be
Yeah, they're
comfortable, a
gonna tell
55-year-old
us.
teacher may not be. I think
But
that's.
I'd like to develop a new instrument to hopefully capture some of the information. And I do realize the importance of a face-to-face or just a
Yeah,
phone
on the
call.
phone, just a phone
And,
call.
and I would like to do that to people that may indicate something, where we may have something where we could say, would you like for someone from Human Resources to contact you in regards to that, and then make the phone call?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have the manpower, and I don't know if I would have the level of employee to be able to answer all of the questions appropriately. So that's something that concerns me in regards to making a phone call to every single person.
Well, I don't know, Clarence, I don't think you meant every single one, right?
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
really, in fact, I had said probably your instructional people, which is where you're having a hard time recruiting people.
Okay, that's still quite.
And if you had another
Still,
area that's a
right,
problem,
quite a lot of
and I don't know if you do or not. And I would say your administrators, there's only 160 of you or something. If you have an administrator leave, which I know there was one left a few months ago, but I'm sure you talked to, but somebody, those people need to be asked, I think, when they walk in. I'm not saying other people are less important or more important, but I'm just saying that's the area those are the people that are touching our students and our kids every single day. And not that everybody else isn't, but what is happening if we have, if we've got a major attrition issue, what is it and why?
Is it possible to have the employee have that option?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's
How
better
about
than
if-
no
how-
option.
How if we, how
It's
about if we
better
do
than no
that?
option.
Right.
Yeah,
that-
but then you can create analysis on that data, and you maybe, you talk about where you go to recruit, maybe you have some of this data where you say, well, these young teachers from
Yeah.
this state, man, they are always leaving and going
I've
home, but
been
these teachers from this
collecting-
state, they seem to like Florida better. I mean,
I've been collecting informally
Yeah.
from the resignation letters and from what I know, because there are some situations that I know really why they're leaving. But I do have some information that I've been collecting since December, looking specifically on why people are leaving myself. But I think if we develop an instrument and then have something there, would you like someone from HR to call? Or if we read something, like for some of the letters, I will call the principal and say, hey, I want to know exactly what's going on here. And then I would reach out to the
Before I call
employee
the principal,
also.
I'd call the person. Because once you call the principal, you
Yeah.
don't know if that principal hadn't called that person immediately and said, what is this all about?
Let's look at
Yeah.
2.0 and change it just a bit. I think that
sure.
there could be an
I
opportunity
guess, I
for
don't
an
know if this is the
option.
right place for a goal, but I'd like a goal to be that all head coaches, boys, girls, whatever, on a weekly basis, use one of these notification systems just to communicate with parents. Just, we got practice, we got game, something, just, even if it's just to say your kid's doing great. I think that would be huge at every school.
I think in reality, Jay, you're saying about the coaches, but we found that not even teachers are using it as often as they should. So maybe if we can provide professional development to all, including coaches, I think you're right.
Well, teachers aren't necessarily running a program with 100 kids for 4 months. I mean,
But,
they're doing a year-round thing. No, and I'm not suggesting teachers shouldn't, but coaches are expected to be leaders.
but we'll add them then to ensure that the professional development.
And I agree with the superintendent, this is something that is kind of you know, when you have the professional development and notification and using it, it is a cultural shift that's important that
Well,
we as
as
a
long as
board
we got an
start to promote.
expectation that they're expected to use it. It's one thing to give them the training and just they say, okay, it's after the training. but
I actually wouldn't want to put something extra on the coaches. When I played ball, your parents weren't allowed to talk to the coaches. You know, I mean, now there's an expectation you have to talk to the
Well,
parents.
they make sure to get a hold of us if they need money. I mean,
Well, they could use
so-
that opportunity
Yeah,
to do that.
maybe we should ban parents from the practice field and the practice
I'm not
facility.
suggesting, no, I'm not suggesting that they should, but some of these coaches don't communicate at all.
I have another item on 2B.
And some of them are great.
No, I understand. I get you.
So this
You're always
goes,
quoting somebody.
yeah,
Clarence Thacker, too.
To be.
yeah, well, to be, if I understand this to be or not to be, right? I understand that this is a continuation of previous, right, of previous goals, and this is a carryover, so now we're going into adding 9 more elementary school to the level 3. I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, though, because this is talking about the technology aspect of it. I really would like to know a little bit about how BYOD is working out with the individual instruction, teacher adoption, and those kind of things. So I think this is more common to you, Ms. Superintendent, than it is to Ms. Marino, because it looks like that's being accomplished, but
Well, to your point, we got kids who still don't realize that they can take a picture of boards.
No, there's a lot of-
assignments. We've got kids who
Yeah.
don't realize they can use their electronic calendars in class. I mean, and not just the one school, but throughout the district, there's kids who just don't realize it. And I think we need to be encouraging, use your electronic calendar, you know, take a picture of the assignments on the board.
these are skills that, you know, using these
Certainly.
devices by the students for education helps them use it later on for a lot of things in life.
Well, they're gonna use it anyways. They're not going away.
Is there any other items, board?
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Clarence?
Indulge me, because 2D is very personal. If we're gonna get guest access, can we get it in this building?
Yeah. Finally, right? Finally, yes.
Everybody except
Doesn't have to be a
the board
strategy, I just,
If you get with Tanya, she'll
Duly
get your own
noted.
login information.
yeah, but I wanna use mine.
Angela, is that possible?
The guest network?
To activate guest access in
Oh,
this
absolutely.
building?
Once we
Yes.
activate the means and the wherewithal at the district from our data center,
Mhm.
we will be able to create that guest access at any of our
Good.
facilities that are under the ICE program,
Okay.
which is everybody except those level 1 elementary schools that we're going to work on trying to push over
Mhm.
between now and next Christmas.
2E, really just a question on it. Are they required to refresh it to 20%, or is it optional and they get this money and they can decide to wait and do it all in the 5th year when they don't have the money?
Absolutely, no, what we've done is, it is a set aside, a percentage set aside from their discretionary budget. They cannot use this for anything else except this, so if they don't use it
So it'll
in year
roll over?
one, it rolls into year
So
two.
we have control, it's not something they can go buy
The
pencils
principals
with.
have 100% control, and they can only use it for teacher laptops. And our logic
Okay.
and reasoning behind that was, we had some schools when we implemented in year one who had just refreshed their teachers.
Mhm.
And they said, I'm not gonna throw that away
Sure.
and use
So they
new
roll
ones,
it.
so we said, roll it.
As long as it's for that and it doesn't go
On
away.
the flip side, the other issue we had is we had classrooms, we're putting smart boards in, Elmos, all the projectors and everything, and then an 8-year-old laptop that couldn't interface with the technology.
Right, no,
So-
Okay.
that's my, F and G, just kind of from a strategic goal. These things are awfully broad, and if you're gonna measure them, I'm kind of not quite sure what the measurement is. I don't know if you just wanna take a look and tighten them up a
Okay.
little.
2F and 2G?
Yeah. 2M. This is near and dear to my heart, too. This is my second personal one, I guess. I should
I mean, I've
complain.
got a
I should
star,
complain.
I've got a star by it, but I'll let Clarence take it.
You know, and Clarence,
This should have happened a long time.
And I'd like to not just design the plan to implement it.
And Clarence, I will tell you that, you know, that's very important because, you know, a lot of times we have to do with a lot less support staff, a lot of, you know, if it makes it easier for teachers, staff, board members to keep track of what's going on. Email is probably a primary way of communicating in this district. Am I right about that? That's the primary
Yes.
way. So, quite honestly, First Class is very robust, but I don't think that they thought a lot about the human beings that are gonna be using it. That's my interpretation of it, and I think that hopefully this is a better platform, allows to use it better. What are your thoughts on that, Ms. Moreno?
It is definitely a different platform. It will meet a whole different set of needs. It is tied into the Office 365, it's tied to the OneNote, and there are a tremendous number of features that will come with that. Some of those features come with our licensing right now that we have on Office 365. And what we are looking at is an implementation plan, Clarence, to speak to what you're asking specifically about, is our implementation plan actually starts off with work that we started investigating a year ago. And we look to possibly being fully implemented by the end of next academic year. It cannot all happen overnight. There are some phases
I
in
get
there.
that. Can we put that in the strategy then?
That will definitely be built into the strategies, what the phases are in the plans, but I have to put this on the table. A lot of it is contingent upon the availability of the funds for the support and the training.
How much?
I would have to go back and give you some very specific numbers, which is exactly what staff is working on right now in preparation for our upcoming budget process that we're
Okay,
working
can you
on.
get us that cost estimate by the next board, not by tomorrow, but by the next board meeting, May 19th?
Let me work with the superintendent and see what we can come up with and give you a timeline of when we can give you that. It's not difficult to put our hands around the numbers. What I'm trying to do is to shave off as much of the excess so that when I bring you a number,
Give us a range.
you can bank on it. No, I'm not comfortable, Mr. Wheeler, giving you a range at this point until staff gives me that number. They have been working closely with consultants. They have been meeting with members from other school districts who have made the transition from First Class into Outlook. And so we're not going to just rely on the fact that we have a vendor telling us, oh, this is easy, this is all you need to do.
How long have you been working on it?
We've been working on this since July of last summer when we wanted to bring this to the board as a goal for this present academic year.
That's 10 months, I gotta believe in 10 months, in the next couple of weeks, you got enough data, you can probably put together some numbers.
We can definitely tighten up the plan and present to you the plan that goes along with the budget. And that is, it's not hesitation, I'm trying to be very frank and very
don't be
forthright
accurate.
with you. The plan is contingent upon the funding. If the funding is not available and I have to scale back on that implementation plan, then I want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're going to get for the investment that we are making.
But Angela, to that point, I think that, I don't know if we commented on the whole thing about, you know, how predictions of the budget relates to strategic planning. I think that what Jay is asking, and I'm asking as well, and is that, you know, you leave that, you know, just present to us what is it gonna take,
Right.
okay?
In today's
And then-
dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And
in-
then we'll deal about, that's
And then
gonna
that
be.
gives us a flavor
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Because money has to be spent for things that are gonna make us successful. That's the bottom line.
Exactly, and that's exactly what the team is doing right now. They're taking a look at how much we're investing in the First Class system, what are the incremental raises just to support and maintain that program as we go out, where's that cost savings gonna be when we transition out of the First Class, because there are components in First Class that we have to maintain and phase out until we can bring in the full 365 service. And that's the piece that requires the training on the teacher's part, because they will be doing business differently. And it is an impact on the classroom teacher. When we talk about the amount of training, when you're pulling them out for this, you can't just take away a tool that they're using and give them something brand new.
And there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth.
No matter what you
But
do.
it's gotta
So,
happen.
I will present to you that full picture.
Yeah, I mean, if you're 40 and under, you're really not
Is it-
gonna have any trouble with this system.
It's not a matter of understanding
No,
how to use
I
the
get it. I
email
know we've had
system.
this
It's-
conversation.
There will be.
But
Is there any other?
Just real quick on,
No, I'm-
on 2N, which is the plan for transitioning the document. I don't know what our plan is to do that, but I hope we look at some outside companies, because there's a lot of people who've already invented that wheel, and
Board docs.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
We are looking at both what we can develop
just
in-house
if
versus
nothing else,
out
we
as
can at
well.
least benchmark what we'd spend in-house. So, that's all I have on 2.
I'm good.
Mr. Wheeler?
I'm good on this, I got something stuff. I gotta leave in just a few minutes.
We're good?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
On this
thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to leave in a few minutes. Can we, I just like to get us back, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just for a second. The meeting that,
Jay, are you saying that you're gonna be leaving right now after we're done with?
about 10 minutes, I gotta leave in about 10 minutes.
All right. One of the things that we wanted to discuss, Ms. Superintendent,
Yes.
before we go on, I guess Jay's not gonna stick around for the next number.
I gotta go, I gotta leave.
Okay.
Do you have any?
No, I'm okay
others?
with this, but I want to just bring up, at the first board meeting in June, I think it was June 2nd, and we don't know when the 16th, can we invite New Dimensions and the four Charter Schools USA schools here, and you can explain why, and then you can do a presentation on why we can't compete with them, and they can sit there and
I
say.
didn't say that we couldn't compete with them, Jay. You're putting words in
Okay,
my
well,
mouth.
okay, why we're not
Thank you.
performing as
Okay,
highly as
thank
them.
you.
May I?
Yes.
If I could say to the board, and I like a different, I like a different approach to this as possible, because I think that this is first of all, number one is, a lot of folks really don't understand what charter schools are. And I mean it. When you tell them it's not a private school, they'll sometimes look at you with that glassy-eyed look, like, really, Mr. Soto?
You're right.
So, if we're gonna have this meeting where we're gonna go ahead and analyze, the components of charter schools, Jay, and, and how they compare and contrast with the schools, and even discuss, I think that it should take more of a educational aspect to it, because remember, there's gonna be a lot of interest. If we do set this for a board meeting, Mr. Thacker, Mr. Booth, I think there's gonna be a lot of public interest. I just don't see how, if we schedule something like this, you're not gonna get a lot of public interest. Because, and because of
Would it
that.
be more conducive to a workshop as opposed to a board meeting?
So I'm thinking 3 o'clock.
I don't-
We have a
I don't know
board
what
meeting at
form it can
5:30,
take, and that's what-
3 o'clock. Invite them in. I mean, before the board meeting's at 5:30, invite them in at 3. I think it's 2 hours.
But Mr. Wheeler,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I don't see as as this is not I don't think an inquisitorial approach
No,
is really
let them
called
present, let
upon.
them present.
So there's gotta be an educational component to it, because I think a lot of people, like I said, are gonna be learning about, through this medium, about charter schools, how, even like a 5-minute or 10-minute, how they were created, what is the purpose of Phillips, and then how they function in this district. And then maybe get into specific as to what some charters do that may be different from what we can do, what are the certain legal constraints and things like that impact this. And then, Mr. Wheeler, I think a lot of your questions should be answered along those
I
lines.
think we need to invite, and there's the 5 schools I'd like to target is New Dimensions High School, PM Wells, Canoe Creek, Renaissance out at
And be-
Point Siena, and Charter Schools.
and because
USA.
of that,
They're all
Mr.
A-
Wheeler-
They're all A schools.
And because of that, Mr. Wheeler, I believe that we should set this sometime in the summer. It doesn't need to be necessarily our next school board meeting.
It's not, it's a month from now.
Well, I just want it to be something that,
We're all on the same page,
That every-
because this is a collaborative effort, I
It
will
looks
tell
like
you
it,
this.
correct.
I mean, we've got to get
other people,
other
right?
people and those schools willing to come
I
in.
think a month's
But,
notice.
do you see where I'm going? What I'm trying to do? Can you add to what I'm?
Well, what I'll
trying to
do
say.
is, I'll see what we can do. I'll talk to Sonia in regards to June 2nd, and then I'll also find out if we have a workshop already done, prepared for something else, or if we're gonna do it during information. I'll let you know.
The only
Is there a
issue
workshop
you-
already scheduled for the second? What is it?
capital budgets.
For June 2nd?
Oh,
The only issue
that's,
which concerned me about June 2nd is, and if the charter schools have to do much prep, and I don't know if they do, the fact that there's 2 days left of school,
Why don't you
That
move
is
that,
the last-
you can't move that meeting to the 9th, like we had this
we're
discussion?
not, we were thinking of only doing the one on the 2nd, and just
But you
not
can't
doing
move
other-
it to the 9th.
June 9th? Add another meeting? you're
No,
saying?
move the 2nd to the 9th.
Well, the 9th, we gotta go to Tampa for a school board association.
That's on the 10th.
that's on the 10th.
There's some meetings on the 9th that we're, I'm gonna be.
There's, I know that we have to do
Okay.
recommendations for staff, and they usually like to know before they leave.
How about Monday the 8th?
That it's approved.
Sure.
So-
Can we meet Monday the 8th?
June. I failed on the bring your own device today. It's in my truck on the charger.
How about if I send out an email?
I think that's a better idea.
Okay, I'll send out an email so that we can move on
Okay.
with the
Yeah,
rest of
yeah,
this,
yeah,
which is number
And since
3.
I don't have guest access.
Clyde,
Move it.
Clyde?
All right, Jay.
Aren't we gonna have a meeting in July?
One, I
Yeah.
think there's one.
There is one in July.
All right, thanks.
I gotta run.
Maybe July.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Maybe July, okay. We're almost, yeah, 15 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, we're in 3, Mark?
I didn't
Thank
realize we
you.
were going this late, sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I thought it was gonna be faster too. Did we make any changes in the 3?
No, not that wasn't already in the original.
Okay. So,
Any of
do
them?
we,
in particular?
questions for 3?
Let me take 60 seconds. If you're ready to go.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, I need 60 seconds to review.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
You can go.
Okay. 3B, this was more of a question than do we have an adequate supply or pool of future principals and assistant principals? I mean, I read this, it sounds like we don't, and I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yes,
We do, we
we
do.
always want to build on our current pool. And principals retire, or we move them, or we have assistant principals move up. We always want to make sure that we have an adequate.
If
an
they
adequate
are
pool.
homegrown, so to speak, and in our pool in our district, do they get any kind of preference as spots come open, or did they just get posted and anybody from Atlanta can apply?
Everyone applies.
That's a 2-year comprehensive program.
Yes, it is.
That they go through.
After the first
principal.
year as an assistant principal, then they're invited to join the next cohort, and it is a 2-year process.
Okay.
And they shadow and a lot of things they do. So
Would
it's a
you
good
like to
program.
know a little bit of information of that? Because I don't think you would know what we do to
I
prepare
don't think they
principals.
do.
How about if we send an email?
Yeah.
I think it would be, I think it's.
I know some of it,
I'm interested in that. as
Yeah,
well.
I think we should send it to all of the board
Yes.
members.
but I would like to see.
And just an additional one that kind of fell under this, I thought, when is Mark still here? Do we need any kind of strategy around training, I don't know what you call them, I'll call them temporary bus drivers, or not the guy who goes in and drives a route?
We actually have
Where they don't do things different, like stopping the road instead of pulling in and that kind of stuff? Is there a strategy
I
around?
think we
we
added
actually
that.
have that supposedly in place, but I think that's something we're gonna strengthen. I'd be happy to add it.
Just a,
Mark, which is the one that you currently have?
On the packet that the board has, 3F,
Yeah.
and it does not appear on the one that's.
Yeah, but we have it here. Is that,
3F
Is there
says,
more
provide additional
clearance?
training to school bus drivers and attendants.
That's it.
yeah, it was really, actually, my question was more focusing on the temporary relief drivers, or whatever you call them, because
We'll add
it
something.
seems like. when we
Permanent
have-
assistants, is that what they're called?
What do you call them? It seems like if we have an issue, a
Permanent
lot of
alternates.
times it's with.
Permanent
you know,
alternate.
There's like 30 of
Permanent
them.
alternate, somebody doesn't show. And I don't
And
know
they
how,
pick
I don't know,
up those
have
routes.
any idea how they know where to go when they say, there's your bus, go that way.
They're
But how-
pretty versed, and most of them are your more senior drivers, because
Is that what it is?
they're guaranteed 7.5 hours. That's what makes that
Are
job.
we still short
You know.
on,
Yeah, that's a full job.
on bus drivers?
Absolutely.
Is there, I mean, are there any type of incentive programs that we can do? I mean, what, because if you raise wages, you'd have to raise for everyone.
Yeah. We've asked all of our area managers and our supervisors to come up with strategies, and some of them are non-salaried.
What about, sorry, Jay's not here, so I asked this.
Charter school bus
Have you,
drivers.
have you reached out to some other districts that are having issues
Yes.
with, what are they, I mean, have you found anything?
What we found is that many districts are using some of the same strategies we are, but the ones who seem to be the most successful are the ones who are the most aggressive, and they target, they either target the communities where they recruit,
Mhm.
like using senior citizens, you know, who have a
Certainly.
tendency to be the people who are available during the day. Orange County did increase the salary for their bus drivers to $12 an hour, which is more than ours. But they did cut their maximum day, or their minimum time down. So we'll see how that impacts them at the beginning of the year. But Orange County had no openings at the beginning of the year, which is great. But we are working on that though.
We have 7,000 employees roughly. Do we do any kind of incentives for an employee to find an employee? Financial incentive, like if you hire, I get Tom to come in and apply for a job, and he gets it in 90 days, I get $100 or Tom gets $100 for.
Yeah, we're actually talking about something.
Recruiting costs money, and it's, if you got 7,000 recruiters.
Everybody's got a network.
I actually volunteered by gift cards for bus drivers if they would find a driver decisions 30 days.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark, you want to add that? That could be something at least we could research.
But that was out of my pocket.
No, we don't want that one.
You don't
Oh,
need
no, no, no.
We're saying about researching some kind of incentive.
Recruitment strategies, but that, I think they are doing
And
that.
Tammy's,
Yeah,
is Tammy still back there?
Truly, Tammy should
So we can put it under
And
yours.
I can tell you that our transportation department is planning a huge job fair in June. And my department's working with them also, so I'm hoping, I mean, they're really getting out there to advertise, trying to find advertisers that are free, like on the local news media, so they really are working hard to get the drivers.
be. Okay.
Any items?
That's all I have.
Mr. Booth? I have no item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
For,
I would like Mr. Wells to have to stay though. Just-
okay. Mark, you want to stay up there, Mark? And okay. Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Was there any additions to 4, Mark? Did you notice any?
For me, yes. I gave you a sheet. For E, there's a grammatical change. The word be is deleted. For G, just to give you some data, in the 2014-2015 school year, there were 12 elementary schools, 8 middle schools, and 4 high schools who were reported to be part of the PBS, the Positive Behavior Systems management program. Unfortunately, we didn't do the kind of support we needed to do last year, so we want to increase those schools. We have 4 schools right now that want to be model schools for PBS for next year. We're really anticipating a big push for that. We're going to have summer training. We don't know if we're getting money yet, but I said we'd come up with creative funding if we had to. Those are my only 2 changes.
Okay, the positive behavior.
I can ask later. I just,
Okay.
Wait, I want to go back to
I just
3
don't know
real
exactly
quick,
what it-
sorry.
You can go back.
Because Tim brought it up, and I
Right.
think the advertising on the buses.
I think he,
Oh, that's in 5?
Five,
Okay,
yes,
sorry,
yes.
sorry. Keep going then, sorry.
Anything else? 4?
Clarence, I had a question. Let's see. Hold on just a second. That skips it. Nope, that's it for 4.
Ricky?
I'm good.
Just bring up F. Mr. Muniz, what do you envision here? This local law enforcement agencies will have command center access to video surveillance systems.
Basically, what that means is that any of the agencies, the law enforcement agencies in our community, St. Cloud PD, Kissimmee PD, or the Sheriff's Department would be able to access the cameras at all of our school sites that are in their jurisdiction from their command center.
Whenever they want, or when we allow them access?
They would be able to access at the command center, which means they can't access from the cars, they can access it from a single location, there's one person who would have access.
I can think of some really bad situations.
Yeah, why?
Okay, well,
What
we
is the-
can.
No, I understand why they would need it in a
KPD,
crisis
we've done that for
situation.
them. We've done it already for KPD, we've had no problems.
Okay.
For a year, so. Yeah. But we do not give access at this, we don't give access at the unit, at the car. It's a high-ranking official, it's actually a captain that has access.
Okay.
What is the,
Not somebody who's ranking.
what are you trying to accomplish with that one then?
If there were to be an incident, an active shooter, that it could be coordinated through that agency. They could see what the circumstances were and position the people the way they needed to do that, so they'd be able to respond quicker.
Okay, and for that they have to have continuous access, or couldn't the access just be
No, they don't have
given?
continuous access, they'll have online access. So they'd have to log in, but we give them a login.
Okay, all right, so I see. So it's not,
It's not
they're
running
not gonna be,
24/7.
it's not running 24/7 with
That's
your
what
monitor.
I was getting.
So
Yeah, it's one
there's kind
person-
of like a privacy concern here that I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
but
yeah.
outside of an emergency situation, why would they need to have surveillance access of our schools?
Right.
That's that's my question.
It's not a
No.
continual
It's not-
feed, it's only if they need it.
Yeah, and
They'll
if it's
access
not
it.
in the course of an investigation,
crisis.
anything that they determine through that video would not be visible in court.
All right, I think that clarified.
So it's not,
Any
it's
other-
not for obtaining evidence.
Well, I wasn't really concerned about that. I was also concerned about just surveillance just for the sake of surveillance.
Right.
You understand?
It's not.
It was
Yes.
going towards the way that,
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely.
But no, I see that what you have now is basically in case of an emergency situation, that they have access to that. And that is, I don't think anyone here would say that we don't want that.
No,
It's, okay, so we got 4A all the way through 4K. All of these things are goals about implementation, not necessarily how we're gonna get there. I don't have any other comments. Clarence?
On 4?
Four.
No, I'm good on 4.
Then we're ready for 5. Thank you very much.
You know what, take back.
What? Take back.
Just 4D. 4D, just because that's the one that it says increase availability to access to health services for our students.
We currently work with Vision Quest, we work with Orange Healthcare for dental. We want to continue to work with them and also expand the number of schools that they serve.
So-
And we're essentially the location that they come to provide their service.
So a parent who wants to and who don't have insurance for their child, they can go ahead and access these through our schools. They could be enrolled.
Correct,
If they-
yes. For vision, I'll give you an example, for vision, we would screen an entire class, okay? Like entire grade level, I probably
Right.
should say. And if a child does not pass that screening, we would send something home to the parent that says that your child, didn't pass the initial
Right.
screening, and they're giving us permission to do a full eye exam.
Okay.
And if they were to qualify for, corrective lenses, and, Vision Quest typically gets their funding from other sources like Medicaid, things like that. If they don't qualify for Medicaid, we try to refer them out to one of our local,
So we probably
ophthalmologists
do
or
this
opticians.
mostly at our title schools, is that correct?
Not all of
No,
them,
no,
no.
because
Well, actually,
we
all of
did
our
it, we
title
had two in
schools,
middle
yes,
school.
but we have other schools as well.
As well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when
And
you
it's our
say-
trying to expand it some.
So you say increase availability, you want to get this to all of our schools,
Correct, yes.
and that's a goal,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
It's amazing.
Oh, it is. I
Sure.
mean,
Can do for our
I,
children.
yeah,
It's
part of me
actually-
bringing it up also is just to get you to talk about it.
It's actually kind of, I don't say alarming, but surprising how many of our students do not pass their initial screening, and who end up qualifying for
That'd
corrective
be the
lenses.
first time that they find out that they need
And we're
glasses.
talking about 6th and 7th grade.
And a lot of them that don't afford it get their first glasses through.
Yeah, and hearing too, hearing.
And hearing, and I
I
think.
had to go have extra hearing.
In some,
The hearing's
in some
actually
school
done pretty
districts,
good.
they even test for
I
allergies
did.
and asthma and things like that. Anyways, thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Thank you.
I was my last one. Anyone else?
That's good.
You're good.
Okay, now I really mean it.
Now,
All right.
Five.
Moving on to 5? Yeah.
Which, did you add anything?
Yes, well, I actually changed.
Right,
Completely
5E.
changed. 5E, I completely replaced it with a new goal. The issue with the, and I'll say what it is. I don't know if it's up there right now, it's in blue there. Yeah, automated travel authorizations district-wide and employee reimbursement processes. This would
Wait, which one?
number
It's been
5E.
changed.
So 5E is gone as it's written?
Well, as it's written right now, as shared with you. I shared with you on Thursday,
Right,
Mr.
okay,
Thacker.
I just didn't realize it was gone.
Yeah, that I replaced that with,
Okay.
actually, I'll read it here and I'll tell you what it was replaced with. The automated travel authorizations, it will plug into what we're doing with the automated accounts payable system. And the reason for this is to eliminate the need for paper forms and streamline the audit and control process, basically leading to greater transparency. But the advantage of this one is to really streamline business operations, going back down to the administrator at the school. Because we're trying to get rid of the paper, which is bogging them down, And we want, really, the administrators walk around with their little iPads, and they can do most of the
Sure,
job
sure,
from their
sure.
iPad. So we felt this was a really strong goal here. The original 5E that we had, and that dealt with documents, storing documents electronically, that's covered now under Goal 2N by Angela Marino. So I was being a little bit, stepping on her toes a little bit, but she informed me that she already had that covered under 2N. The next one was 5I. I want to put on there at the end. We look realistically when we could establish a district health and wellness center, and we're really feeling comfortable that we can most likely have something done by January 2016. So January 2016 is going to end that sentence there. And then for 5D, there was baseline data. As this might look familiar to you because we had this goal for this year. Last year we had 9 competitive grants that we applied for. This year we had 12, and the goal is for next year is to exceed the baseline of this year. So hopefully it will be more than 12.
Do we have a grant writer in the district?
Yeah.
So is that in?
We have a department.
Must be.
Yeah.
Department of 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we only have one grant writer.
One, right,
Yeah.
One grant writer.
An accountant.
Yeah.
Do we need another one?
Well, I'm not going to
There-
answer for Lizette because I know Kim's stressed out a lot.
There is
There,
one, but she's on FMLA.
There's more than one, she said?
No, there's only one, and she's on FMLA. Do we need a
Yeah.
temporary one?
We have also Kim Beekman that does.
Yeah, I know her. So we're
We're
good?
okay, we're good.
We're good?
We are.
Okay.
That doesn't look like a positive though.
What was that you said?
I have to say something for our grant writing department.
There's a lot of, it changes throughout the year, so the workflow is not steady enough for 2 people full-time, possibly.
We have Laura Wakefield. I don't know if anyone knows her,
Yeah.
but Laura Wakefield is working with us right now on an OPS contract because she's able to work on writing grants. So when
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Kim
you
is
don't have to
stuck,
hire someone. You can always sub some of this work out.
and that's what we're doing. Laura is currently working with us. Some of that.
Board, I think that the first, let's just take on from what Mr. Weishauer left. I guess he wanted this, I don't know where it falls into these categories on the issue of advertising on buses. Is that where it is?
Well, just the whole revenue.
I think
Go ahead. Articulate that for
I
us.
think find an alternative funding source that can deliver immediate and long-term sustainable funds to the district.
And that was the proposal to include in the
I think
strategic
it's a
plan?
different, I don't think it's on here. I think.
Okay,
it's
that's gonna be
different.
the,
And I also
That was your
think-
language, correct?
That was mine. And I also think, and I don't know, y'all can decide whether it's the same one or different one, but I look at the funding issues in two ways. One is purely alternative, signs on buses, whatever it is. The other one, continue to work with the legislative group to find alternative state funding that will help on operational needs, as opposed to this year, we focused on capital needs through the high growth. But I think we really have to find some ways to prop up our operational funding also. And I think that should be.
And the first one that Clarence mentioned and Ricky was talking about, those are additional revenue sources, remember that we have been discussing this. So we need to add that one.
Mhm.
Plus the
Yeah, I
second
think
one.
that definitely needs to be part of our plan going
Yeah, I think,
forward.
yeah, to me, they're different, but I don't know whether y'all think they're the same, doesn't matter, or two approaches.
Need to sell our stadiums. So- So-
Whatever it
we could
takes.
just
Whatever
have-
it takes.
We could just have Geico, sponsor our
Geico
OHS Stadium, yeah.
At Tom Gannerelli Field in St. Cloud.
Well, I think to me, the big piece of this is long-term sustainable.
Yeah.
Not just one time.
Not just a one time.
Looking for things that we can get year after year after year as opposed to one-time shots.
Well, we gotta learn how to do it to start with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we make it as a goal, we're gonna have to get somebody that knows how to do it to do it.
I think the
And-
board spoke about wanting this as a goal previously to this, right?
Well,
And then we wanted to see.
had it last week when we were.
You gotta make
Right.
sure too, whoever's working on it, I mean, the old problems that I always heard within athletic departments was, well, we went out and got all this money, and now you're taking
Taking
it
it
away.
from us.
This guy never worked, this group didn't work at all to get their money, and then there's truth to that. We worked to get all this money, so why are you giving it to this person who didn't work to get anything? I understand
If you
that.
put a banner at the football field, my guess is today that goes to the football program.
I would hope so,
So,
you know.
how do you do
So
it
we
and not
wanna
tread
make-
on every, I mean, we can't,
But some district-wide initiatives would eliminate that, some
Yeah.
district-wide
You do
initiatives.
realize that the athletic programs have always traditionally subsidized academic programs. I mean, at least in higher education.
yeah.
And so I wouldn't see why that would be that much different here.
No, I don't have a problem with
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
I am saying, not just athletic programs, but things that sustain themselves. I don't want to go in and take all their sponsors
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
no.
now it's our money.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
I guess is what I.
But some district-wide initiatives on advertising there, I mean, let them have the banners, but what about the scoreboards if we work with one company, or, you know what I'm saying?
And if, you know, looks at, every Lynx bus I pass has a big sign on it.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know what, we gotta
Well,
do things different.
I can tell you.
I don't know if that's
just-
even
just-
legal, Clyde.
Just on a very small scale, Liberty has their football scoreboard being replaced. Mullinex is paying for that.
It's gonna say Mullinex on it?
Uh-huh.
See?
But it will have
That's
the
what happens.
Mullinex.
Yeah, that's, I mean, good
That's
for them.
20, 25, 30
Liberty's doing
grand.
Yeah.
Okay,
They work through them. They're their big business partner, and
Yeah.
Bob Studley worked with them.
nice.
We helped them with the permitting.
Good.
Mel, I have one change or addition I need to note is on 5L. The only thing is under persons responsible, I somehow left Mr. Phelps off and Mr. Davis off, because that's gonna be in line with the other ones where we're working with the county, but at different levels, so I just wanted to
I
make
was
sure.
glad to see Ellen.
So you didn't need your name on anything else, Tom. Yeah, so that's really it.
You know,
I got several more on this.
yeah, go ahead, Clarence. No, go ahead. That's the,
5F, same thing. I don't know if, we need to be able to get that up fairly quickly to get the online payments. I can't believe our banks or somebody can't help get that thing moving, but.
to stay on that, is Dana still here? I mean, that is, we're gonna integrate this too as part of our new system.
No.
The online payment?
Yeah.
I think they said the feature wasn't ready yet, so I don't know that that is part of the system. It's what they were working towards, but we haven't seen that yet.
So what were you gonna say?
Yeah, right now we were looking at mylunchmoney.com and working with them. Currently, we're using them for a food service program
If it's
and
there-
expanding this to include other online payments. Using mylunchmoney.com to expand their service to take in other forms of payments. Yeah, 'cause
These are features that are really available. It gives me some pause as to, I know some of the things that Mr. Soto has brought forward, that a company that large, at that scale, doesn't have some sort of an online payment system is a little discouraging. And I would think that, you know, that's something we need to look into from them. So, because I think it'd be easier for these folks, field
Yeah.
trip collections, all these kind of things.
Everything.
And I know there's different things. Some money's lunch money, some money's classroom money, some money's school money. I know it's
Booster
all different.
payments.
Yeah.
And all that stuff would be simpler for everybody. 5G. I think we need to look at how when we do our long range, particularly capital needs, I think we've really got to look, and she left, but I had sent a note to Dr. Esposito today to get some estimates on the number of kids that we have coming into a charter school this year, and then the ones I know we got rollover. My guess will be more people will apply at some point for next year too, to really start factoring in or backing out, I guess, the number of kids that we have going to. Let's say we have 1,000 kids we're projecting to come into our district next year, and we've got, actually we probably have 3,000 seats, but let's say you take a third of them, we just kind of got even. So how we've got to, I think we've got to do a better job when we go to the legislature and other people and say we need 300 million, 400 million, 500 million, that we've indeed factored or backed some of that out and meld those two together a little better, I think, than what we currently to do. And I think that ought to be part of our strategy, is to tighten that up. 5H. I'll skip that one. Number 5, addition to your 5I, or maybe this is, I don't know if this is an addition or or a separate strategy. I think I'm really still kind of shocked a little bit the other day when we talked about the health center, and it was talked about being a total of about $3 million this year, which is somewhere between 5 to 7% of our total expenditures. I think we got to find a way to track next year, once it opens, how many expenditures we spend or pay that are for things that could have gone through the health clinic. In other words, if $30 million of our stuff are things that fit going through that health clinic and we've only got $3 million of it going through there, I think we have a very unsuccessful, unsustainable model. And if we don't know what it is, we don't have any way to encourage people to do it. And if we are building a health clinic to only serve roughly 5%, 5 to 7% of our total needs, does this make sense? And I guess my concern was, if anybody thought I was gonna be scared that they said the health clinic is gonna cost $3 million, I was almost scared it was only $3 million, because ultimately, if it's a break even, ultimately, if we save 10%, I would sure rather save 10% on 20 million than 10% on 3 million. So the more that we, I don't want to say forced to, but the more that we kind of get going through there, the better. And if we've got, 95, 93% of our total healthcare cost don't fit in this health center, is there a bigger chunk that we should be looking at that we're not addressing? Just, there's a huge disconnect here to me of what's going to go through there. But I think we've got to track things that we know as the year goes on. And I talked, Ken's not here. I met with Ken earlier in the week, and I'm not sure Ken knew how to track it. But I think if we want to do this, we want to call it. We've got to find things that should be going there and figure out how to kind of encourage it. And I know not everybody's going to go, and I'm not, but 5 to 7% of our total cost going to the clinic seems extremely low to me.
And that's one of the things that we were actually working on with Gallagher Benefit Services, identifying which services that we could funnel through there that would be a cost savings to the district.
Yeah.
The biggest one was COM, was one of them. The pre-employment screenings too, Tammy, I believe. And then
And that's not even,
yeah.
those, well, the pre-employment
systems-
screening's not even in our healthcare
Yeah.
cost, is it? Or is it?
I think part of it is, and part of it's reimbursement from the employee. Is that, Ms. Tammy
That's
here?
correct, but the bus driver physicals we pay for.
Yes, that would be.
But it's still, you take all these things that sound like a lot, and we're down to, like I say, our budget's like $55 million for healthcare, I think, and we got 3 million going through. It's not a very big percentage.
Yep.
So, I think we need to, which I've talked about this, having like the education summit or forum or whatever we want to start, I think as a district, and this might be the board's goal, is to really work on building a strategy to get the community to start thinking and include the school district in their long-term economic growth and planning, and the importance the district plays in it. And to me, this is kind of a little bit like raising a level of consciousness. So when they start thinking about people moving here and growth, what do we do? How does the school district fit in this? We go to the economic summit that the county did, or the chamber, I'm not sure who did it, a month or so ago. Clyde was there, Melville was there. I know Ricky and I were there. Were you there, Calvin? Yeah.
Economic Summit?
Yeah.
Nah,
But
Jay was there, we just didn't know.
Doesn't sound like.
But the whole conversation talked very little about school district. And the school district, while it may not get the economic development here, the school district is what gets the people to live here that go to work in those places in this community. And without it, I can tell you, we've got an extremely tough road to hoe in the long term, because it's about building value.
We're number one in education is when it comes to people deciding where to live, so we need to be a big part.
We're gonna, Dana, we'll add that one. You'll add that one to yours.
So,
Yeah, we want an education summit, and I would agree with Clarence on that. That's probably more of a board thing than anything else.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to do, obviously, coordinate with staff.
And it's a whole thing. It's really, like I say, it's really a mindset.
And this goes to what I brought up earlier, and Dr. Akes pointed out, this was on number 5, is to be a part of these economic development boards. I think we need to, as moving forward, I think the school district should have someone, whether it's a board member, staff member, any of these economic development boards that will have us to get on there, because we're a vital part of the economic development of our community.
Absolutely. Higher property values is answers all our questions.
Could we expand a little bit on your education summit? And
I
are
hate
you
that word.
Yeah, but are we
Yeah.
looking at something similar what the county just
Yes,
had?
something
Like
along
the
those-
economic summit?
Yes, but bringing in some outside people, what
Okay.
I would call more experts even than what they
Right.
had, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
See what we
Maybe
can do.
someone that would actually talk about how education ties to economic development.
Okay.
Yeah, some good stuff, some good case studies and some bad ones.
I got
Sure.
you.
And having some people come in and talk to our community leaders
Yes.
about why it's so important to support your educational system.
Right.
And don't just say, we're over here as this different body operating all the schools. We need to all be together, cities, county, and the school district.
Universities, the
And what
local
I told them,
college,
this has got
everything.
nothing to do with that we're teaching geometry in seventh
No,
grade.
right.
Or that we've got so many A's and B schools. It's nothing to do about that. It's really about the fit of an educational system into a community and the
Well, I guess specifically about the funding, local efforts for education. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
That's
any-
part of
any
it too,
part
is
of
to
it.
start.
I mean,
If we're
yeah.
ever gonna want some of that funding, or we ever have the need to ask for the legislature, it's starting to get the rest of the community, it's building a base and a consciousness about this is important to us.
You know, and you sit and listen to all of the goals and strategies that the district had. But what Dr. Akes and Dr. Brizendine and Mr. Allen go over, we got a lot of good things going on in
Oh,
the district.
a huge
You've
amount
got to
of
get that information out there to your chambers and
Yes.
to
Well,
the
we've talked a lot
community.
about
So,
messaging lately.
I mean, there's a lot going on that's really good.
Well, I'm gonna send a article that I just read today that two Harvard economists did, not for anybody else like it or for to know. But it's, you can actually go in and put your county in there, and it basically goes through and talks about the poverty level in your county and what that will do, the impact of people who grow up based on the number of years they live in a community. So if you live in Osceola County for 20 years, you're gonna be in the bottom 25% quartile of the people in this country on wages. Those are the kind of things that kill this district.
Yeah.
Because Orange County's way higher, and if you wanna go to Seminole County, it's way higher.
Way higher.
So those are the kind of things, I wanna start combating that kind of stuff because granted, a lot of people in this community are never gonna read that article. Guess what? Engineers in New York are gonna read it before they move here to go to work in Sensor. So that's the kind of stuff we gotta start. We need answers for. We need people, when they go meet with Tim to buy a piece of property, Tim's not, obviously Tim can, but people that just boom, 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 this is what you get when you come to school here. So, it's building up. One other thing that's not in here, and I just want to throw this out, and I wrote this down and struck it out and wrote it down about 10 times. We've heard a lot, we've got salary issues, we've heard a lot of things about it, but I've also heard a lot of people in here talking, teachers, talking about what things that I would kind of address as quality of life or stress issues that are not pure salary. And work-life balance, that sort of thing. Is that something in our strategic plan or thought process that we should think of things other than just salary? I'm not saying we don't think about salary, but are there some things like that that can be addressed that we should look at as a district? I just want to throw it out there.
Is that part of?
Is it in there somewhere if it isn't?
Well, I don't think it's been expanded, but part of that wellness.
That's a piece, that's
Yeah.
absolutely a piece, but there.
Well, you know, you want to find out.
Are there other things?
One of the things that I brought up with when Tammy Otterson was here, and that is that, you know, it serves us to know the data from exit surveys. But I think the climate data that was alluding to, and which I'm hoping it could find its way into the strategic goals, is because you can correlate, you can try to correlate the two with the exit and the climate data. And maybe there's a lot of creative ways that you can really analyze the data to guide you as to those issues.
Right.
I've always said that You know, it's just common sense that, you know, there's a lot of factors that when we see the teachers come over here, the yellow shirt day, and we had a lot of different things, you know, but in between that you see some common threads, but then you also see specific experiences. So, you know, you want to be able to address those or think about how you could address those in a strategic way, district level. But you got to know about them first. And so I think that it'll help out a lot to identify what are those things that we can do besides just a raise. And I think that the data could come from those
That's kind of my thought.
Surveys.
That's something we want.
Sure.
Workshop on.
If, you know,
I don't know.
we've got to research what we can do with that.
You done, Claire?
I'm done.
I would like to talk about 5M. I know,
Yeah.
we may want to reach out to the city of St. Cloud.
Okay.
They may have some different opinions on this, so I just, I don't want to go too far into that, but, you know, I'd like to, and they've actually reached out to me asking if we could have maybe a joint meeting together.
Sure.
So if you know.
Is that Ted, or Mr. Ragsdale? Just
No, it was a
curious.
councilman.
Oh, councilman, okay, gotcha,
Yep,
gotcha.
yep.
Gotcha.
To talk about what their plans are going forward and what they kind of see as their economic development strategies, because we know that's where a lot of the growth is going to be. I mean, in
Yeah.
fact, that's where our 2 high schools are planned and what will be the city of St. Cloud.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, and this also took into account the private sector. I've already reached out to John Adams with R.J. Whidden. He's agreed to sit. We're going to develop a committee. It will include the city of St. Cloud, Kissimmee, and Osceola planning
good,
staff.
good.
Okay, they're all going to be a part of it, and we're going to have Bob Whidden or John will represent, you know, the private sector and growth management and everything. John's been a big proponent of this. Okay, and you know, it is totally a different way of thinking from the way we've designed schools. But Mr. Davis is on board with this. He's very in tune with neighborhood schools and what we can do and what we can't do. So John's going to probably head up that committee, but we're going to be doing that as soon as school gets out. And we're going to start having some pretty big meetings. And Tom will be in on it, and finance and everybody. But I think it's going to be a good thing.
yeah.
But we'll certainly include
Yeah,
all
maybe
of the
sometime just, we
jurisdictions,
ought to get
yeah.
our council, our city council and this board together just to have maybe a workshop before a meeting.
Sure.
Just to have a quick,
All right.
get together.
Okay. That sounds good.
Good?
Sure. Anything else?
That's all I have.
I don't have anything.
I would just like to say something. This is the very first time that we have spent over 3 hours having a conversation regarding strategic plan, where the board has taken the time to look at them beforehand and come up with ideas and suggestions. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that, and we as staff appreciate that. I just want to say thank
Thought
you.
that's what we were supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Yeah. I don't have any long closing remarks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You have to beat the gavel. Strike.
Yeah.
Very good, Joe.